welcome to episode 7 of the Barnsey Podcast.
Welcome.
If you've made it this far, thank you very much. Our last episode was, I don't know what it clocked in at, it'd be like 5 hours something.
5-6 hours, I think it was.
Wow.
In total.
Big thanks to P-Source for having such a great yarn and getting an epic episode out for us. And yeah, it's been a really good response. I just wanted to start off by saying thanks to all of the new listeners. There's obviously more people listening to this than I know about, like personally.
Oh, yeah.
The numbers are just, you know, we're not doing Iron Man numbers, but
it's more than we expected.
Something
definitely.
that just started as an experiment, just playing with, our webcams and multiple microphones and figuring out all these shots and, tripods and all that jazz. It was just an experiment because as we've said a couple of times on other episodes, we're massive fans of other podcasts. And instead of just sitting and watching it happen, we thought, let's give it a try. And those few episodes that we've put out have had a great response. It's been really good. So yeah, thanks to Pete and thanks to our previous episodes.
Mitch, everyone
guests.
Crazy, of course.
Crazy will be a return guest soon.
Of course.
And that's the other thing that's been really cool about the podcast is having people reach out and say, they love what they're hearing, like friends, old friends, coming out of the woodwork that have heard the podcast, and people that are coming out and saying they want to be a guest, they want to jump on and talk shit with us, which is great. So I've actually got some guests lined up coming up. We've got Breakspear coming up as our next guest.
Yeah, this should be interesting.
Which is going to be great. So if people that are listening to this episode want to prepare for that, I highly recommend a couple of things. Okay, so what we're going to get into, I was talking to him on the phone about it, and he's keen as to come onto the podcast because he's been watching a lot of documentaries on ancient, pyramids and ancient... what's the word I'm looking for? Not geology, but ancient structures and
astrology.
Yeah, well, how they ancient structures line up with
cosmic astrology.
And I'm sure we'll get into some ancient aliens-y kind of topics.
I didn't hear the question. Therefore, aliens.
I can't wait. It's going to be a great episode. We'll get deep. And I've been preparing by watching a lot of Graham Hancock stuff, who's a regular guest on the Rogan podcast. That's how I discovered him.
He's a reasonable, calm voice that actually you can listen to without shaking your head.
Graham Hancock's not really like aliens and stuff like that. He's more questioning the date of that stuff, of when it was constructed, and maybe the human history, how we know it, how we might have just basically, that might be more than one time that we've become a civilized, developed society. Maybe stuff's broken down a few times that we don't see. That kind of stuff we're going to get deep into. So that's a guest coming up. So thanks to all the people that have reached out on the message boards and sent us
Reddit too.
Reddit
big
messages.
Thanks to the Reddit audience, for not slaying us. I was a bit nervous putting it on Reddit. It can be a bit cutthroat.
Yeah.
So the Joe Rogan podcast community, the podcast subreddit. Big ups to you guys. Thanks heaps.
Yeah, it's been really good. I think that it's a bit of a spirit of putting yourself out there. They're like podcasts. It's crazy, like nerve-wracking to do because it's the internet, as you say. It can be really cutthroat out there. But I think that, the spirit of podcasting, there's quite a supportive sort of, community around it. People that are giving it a go because it's the new medium. And a lot of the leading podcasts today, like if you can go back to their early beginnings, like we were talking about before with the Rogan podcast, watching those earlier episodes and watching them mature and develop into awesome productions now. But they started as guys in the lounge room on couches holding handheld mics,
probably with a bit of sway of guest a bit more than what we've
totally got, and that's the other thing that's really hard about doing our podcast is we're not stand-up comedians. We're not famous people, and we're just, we're working normal jobs and stuff like that. So our range of things to talk about and guests that we can get on, it's a different kind of, vibe. And yeah, that's a difficult thing as well. And it's also, I was thinking about this the other day, you know, people that are stand-up comedians, for example, that have podcasts, or, you know, someone like Marin, you know, if the beauty of a lot of their podcasts is how open they are and how they can talk about some pretty gnarly stories. They can talk about, like things that essentially would be, for the normal person, talking about on the internet publicly could be quite damaging.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it's not like I feel like we censor ourselves with the way that we talk on the podcast, but, you know, it's an awareness that you need to have. You know, you can't
Definitely.
just, you know,
For sure.
talk about, you know, for example, you know, something that might affect future employment.
Yeah, that's pretty important, yeah.
So, but it's been heaps of fun, and as I said, I've been really itching to do another episode of the podcast. Those 3 episodes that we put up of the P-Source episode, that was an awesome one to do, but it has been about a month since we've sat down and put the mics up. So we don't have a guest for this episode, just me and Brewer going solo. But got heaps of stuff to talk about. So yeah, we're just gonna fire through some stuff. I wanted to talk about a couple of things. I've been watching a few cool documentaries. As I said, I've been watching the Graham Hancock stuff and leading up to that Breakspear episode that we're going to do. But I've also been caught a really, really good documentary that I want to recommend to everyone called The Culture High. I watched it last night, and it's got Joe Rogan, it's got Snoop Dogg, it's got the guys that made The Union, which was another amazing documentary that came out about 4 or 5 years ago, and this is essentially a follow-up to it. Really, really good documentary.
What's it called?
It's called The Culture High. And yeah, essentially it's like basically where it's a strange time in both America and Australia at the moment with the medical marijuana and the actual legalization of recreational cannabis in Colorado and Washington. And we've had a bit of the same talk in Australia recently, more on the medical legalization with, the SBS show Insight.
Yeah.
So they had, I think it's a week or two ago, they had an episode, and in lead up to that, they had a survey, which was, should Australia legalise the use of marijuana? And what I found interesting about it, because I saw a preview of the episode that they were going to do and read a bit about it, and it looked like that it was going to be mostly talking about medical marijuana. But the way that survey question...
Yeah, that survey question wasn't...
That wasn't medicinal? Like, should medical marijuana be considered? No. It was, should Australia legalise marijuana use?
That's right, yeah.
And I don't know if you saw it, but there was also I think it was in Martin Place, they had SBS set up this big, it was like a tank that had a hydroponic weed plant. So I don't know if they were real plants. I only saw photos of it. And like 2 tanks either side. And I think one said fertilizer and one said poison.
Like weed killer or something.
Yeah. And it was basically that was going to trigger, one side was going to trigger based off the vote, should Australia legalise marijuana, and if it was no, it was going to, weed killer.
Stick in some poison.
And if not, then feed the plants.
Oh.
Which I thought was, that all didn't seem very medical based, those questions and that get up. That was like, and even still, that poll, which ran for I think 2 weeks leading up to the episode, and it hit pretty virally social media wise. I saw it posted, heaps of times by heaps of people on Facebook and Twitter and all of that kind of jazz. So I don't know what the end number of votes were. I think I read.
I think it was a few thousand.
I think it was more like 20 or 30,000 votes. Right. Yeah. I think. Anyway, the end vote ended up being, I think, 87% to 13% for yes.
Let me see if I can find it.
And the thing was, I remember in the lead up, because the survey was open until the episode aired, and then remained open, I think, for another few days or maybe even a week after the episode had gone to air. And I remember then seeing sort of a pushback on social media from some more like right-wing, conservative pages saying
Parents Association of Australia.
Yeah, probably lobbied by who knows what.
Hillsong.
Basically saying, we need to, even out, this has, been a hijacked survey. Everyone should vote on this to truly voice the opinion as like a final push to try and get and I think it went down like 2-3%. Did you find the end result?
No, I can't seem to find it at the moment. So,
but yeah, it was 87% to 13%. The actual episode of Insight though was much more like based on medical.
Oh, yeah,
and they had some pretty intense stories on it, like a couple of families that had some.
That bush doctor dude, from Byron Bay.
Oh yeah, yeah,
that guy.
Yeah,
and I've seen him on a couple of different programs as well.
He was also SBS also has that Living with the Enemy.
I think it might have been that I saw him on.
Yeah. And that's where they swapped to people's lifestyles.
They took in that
the Nimbin. The lady that went to Nimbin. And I think he wasn't the guy that was actually part of the main thing. He was just one of the people there at Nimbin. And it was like a sit-around table debate scene. Yeah. And I think he was one of the guys in that. But yeah, he was on that SBS Insight as well. And he was pretty defensive. And, I guess you're going to be, he's in a situation where I think he was going to court like a week after the taping of that. He's since gone to court and got off the charges.
Right. Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Apparently it was like, I saw news footage of it and it was actually really weird. It was like he came out and it was like the news was totally on his side, but it was like not a main... It was like Win News. It wasn't like a main 9 news thing. It was like a regional news.
Regional news, yeah.
So it was like, it was really strange. The way to describe it was like the reporter was mates with him as soon as he came out. And it was this young lady, and she goes, "Oh, how did it go?" And he's like, "Yeah, look, I'm, got off everything." And then it cuts to like some footage and a voiceover. And the voiceover was going like, he got a very reasonable magistrate that looked at this and realised, this, charges shouldn't apply. Right. Whereas, just imagine that same story on Today Tonight or something, Yeah. It'd be like, ridiculous magistrate wasting taxpayers' money by letting drug fiends on the street. But it was, the voiceover was like, got a reasonable magistrate that saw sensibly...
What about in somewhere like America? What do you reckon would happen to somebody like that in America?
Depends what state you're talking about.
But in a state where it's like illegal, I guess, whereas it is like Australia, he'd have the book thrown at him, wouldn't he? This
is one of the things that I found interesting in this Culture High documentary that I'm recommending is the amount of, arrests over there. Look, basically 50% of all of the drug arrests are for small amounts of cannabis. And these aren't just in the states that don't have the medical or even the legal use. Yeah. There's still situations, and especially in the medical states where, so a lot of people think I've got a card or I'm around, a very lax scene. Those states apparently are still, people are still getting busted really hard for it, and for, small possession amounts. So to answer that question, what would it be like over there? Don't know. And you got to remember there's the component with this guy that he was providing it as a medicine, and it wasn't like, he was selling it in like, cannabis form, the traditional form of, bales of weed. Yeah. He was actually processing his oil, Rick Simpson oil, I think it was called. His name's not Rick Simpson. I guess he had
exposure as well, and if he was fairly unknown going into that process, they might go harder on him. But because, the media know of him, are probably going to follow up on him. They were like, oh, if we throw the book at this dude, people are going to notice.
Well, that's the thing. And I'm sure the thing over in the States is that there's sanctioned growers now. So these medical states have actual government, but that's sanctioned at a state level. But it's not really these growers so much that are getting, tangled up in the crossover of state says legal, federal says no. It's more the like dispensaries that set up, and that's one of the things that, you know, people say is insidious about the way that the DEA and Obama dealt with, and they cover this in this Culture High documentary, is that they actually kind of allow these businesses to set up under the guise of the state saying, yep, it's fine by us, and actually allow them to get to a point where they've got quite a bit of assets and quite a bit of people to charge serious charges with. And then the DEA sweeps in, and not only do they, you know, ruin their businesses and people go to jail, but they seize all these assets. These asset forfeitures are just crazy.
That's
like,
ridiculous.
You know, and it's like billions of dollars over the last, you know, couple of decades that have been, you know, and they talk about in the documentary that it's not just a case of these massive proven crimes that they do these asset seizures from. It's heaps of it's from people that beat the charges, that don't actually get charged with anything, and then they've got to go into the system and then battle the police department to get either their property or their assets back. Now, you know, someone would say, well, there's a process there that they can go and do, but it's like, you know, you're going up against a pretty entrenched system, and you've got to put more cash up into it to try and, you know, so a lot of people just are like, you know.
See you later, car.
Yeah, or whole house, or like hundreds of thousands of dollars, like... You know,
it happened to innocent until proven guilty, you know.
Apparently there's a lot of cases where that doesn't matter, or the red tape means that, well, yeah, you're innocent and you can walk out the door, but I keep all the shit that I, you know, got in the raid.
And that kind of goes against the whole kind of justice ethos, you know, that, you know, they have to prove you guilty. You don't have to prove you're innocent. They have to prove you're guilty. And it shouldn't be the other way around, that you have to prove you're innocent. Yeah,
it should be a case of you get all your stuff back really, you know, without question, you know.
With compensation, if they fucked up and accused you, you'd expect them to be coming back and going, hey, you know, sorry, please don't sue us, you know, because we made a mistake. You know, because I'm sure I've heard of that in the past. You know, they make a wrong accusation and then they counter sue for, you know, defamation or loss of character or reputation, you know. So they've kind of eroded all of that and just made it law that they can take all your assets. And like, that's stuff.
It's pretty crazy, yeah. It's something that you wouldn't think really exists until it happens to you. You know, it'd be like, what? This isn't right. Like you're saying, like, can't I like sue you for this? And it's like, what, you just get to keep it? Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And that Culture High documentary goes into some pretty horrific cases of that and lays out some statistics that are crazy. Now, I don't know if that's the case. I'm sure it has happened in Australia. I'm sure not to the same degree, but that's pretty crazy. But what I do find interesting about the Australia component about it is how much we are talking about it in the media, and, you know, it's not all that sort of demonized, you know, talk. There is some level-headed voices coming through. And one of the really surprising voices that has joined that side of let's look at this and maybe in a medical capacity is Alan Jones. Have you seen that?
Yeah, Alan Jones and Tony Abbott banded together.
And Tony Abbott. Now, this is weird. Now, how can you not have a part of... Well, my brain certainly goes, you know, Alan Jones for one, and then Tony Abbott. Both of those guys saying, yes, let's try this. What's their ulterior motive?
Yeah, they're probably... And it's probably the monies. You know, it's all driven by the monies. At the end of the day, though, you know, we're all human beings, and you see some chick, like you saw her on that Insight, like convulsing, and like that's their daily life. They've got to deal with that every friggin' day, and
after trying everything else,
like they were saying on the documentary last night, and on the Insight, you know, really toxic drugs that have massive unknown side effects, and like one drop of, you know, brew oil, and they're they're not cured. They still have seizures and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's manageable.
But like people, like kids that have had seizures every day, like they're talking numbers of like 300 to 500 seizures a day for these kids, and not only that, but some of the medications that are tried in the course of trying to cure that ailment, they've become like either addicted to or have major side effects to as well. And then on top of that, the oil that they're able to produce for, especially the little kids, is such a low psychoactive content, the THC. It's more about the CBDs, the cannabinoid. I can't remember, but apparently you've got the THC, which is the heady stone, and then you've got the CBD, which
it's like the good stuff in inverted
apparently, especially for the epilepsy and the MS and the stuff like that, and seizure based relief, the CBD stuff, and they can breed plants that have got higher levels of that, and the way that they make the oils.
And that's what that Nimbin dude did.
And apparently, if you as an adult, took a big syringe full of that, you're not going to feel any effect. And it's similarly for these little kids. So it's not like they get to stop seizing by being affected by drugs. It's like a version of the plant that gives the benefit. So it's
not only the kids, but all the family members. You can see the relief in their face, and
and there was one family member on that Insight, that was not going to do it yet, not willing to try the oil.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Because she's like, I just want my government and my doctors to be like, okay, it's okay to do.
This is how much do you need.
Exactly, proper dosage. We've done some tests. And, then the hardcore advocates, and there were some on the Insight program, would be like, we don't need tests. It's been around for thousands of years and we know it's awesome.
Like an olive-skinned dude, remember? He just at the back with the scrunched bit of paper. He was just the worst
I've got
advocate.
To say,
fuck off, man.
I can't. I only watched that episode of Insight because of the subject matter, and I was really interested, and the big hype leading up to it with the survey and stuff. I'm
chick's
going to
face is weird too.
Yeah, she's like Skeletor. She looks like Skeletor with a wig on. She really does. And it's a very manipulated show. Now they'll say, no, it's not. It's an open forum discussion, and no, it's very directed, and there is a casting element, like you say with that olive-skinned dude. I didn't like that guy from the moment his face was on the screen, and part of me was like, I was hoping he was going to be like anti, but no, here he is actually an advocate and actually prescribing it, and I'm good on him for that. And he's put himself out there on a limb, but turns out he has a couple of dodgy things in his past. But did you see the way that she was clinging and making come on, SBS has got this integrity level better than things like, a current affair stuff. But there are glimmers of that shitty journalism of when it was like, but you were expelled for this and that. And he did acknowledge it. And he's like, look, you're judging the man and you're not judging the issue, which was a great response from him. That was one thing he said. I was like, that's a pretty good way to come back from that.
He was getting all angsty and stuff. And he was just ready to butt heads with somebody.
Like I say, the casting element, you say that that's a fully organic open forum discussion. No, you can pick the players in that, and I'm sure that actual episode of however long it was on TV was 2-3 times longer than that. Those things always are.
I'm sure they are.
The taping of them get edited down to make snappy for TV. Having said all of that, stop being so critical and conspiratorial. It was pretty interesting to see, some of the, as you said, the families and stuff like that. Yeah, as I was saying before, Alan Jones and Tony Abbott, it's amazing that these guys are coming out to say it. And a lot of people have always said that conservative governments would most likely be the ones that would be more...
Why?
You know why? Because conservative governments are all about personal freedom and personal responsibility and stuff like that.
I can understand that. Yeah.
Maybe not so much in Australia, but definitely in America, that Republican thing of, personal sovereignty. Now a lot of shit comes...
Less government, more self.
Exactly, yeah. Small government and get the government out of my life.
Yeah.
Get it. And I've always kind of liked that facet of right politics, especially in the States. Like, that's a good component of it. Like, I agree with that. I don't agree with how far they take it and how a lot of people that think in that mindset have a tendency to...
No tax.
Yeah, exactly. They don't like that famous Obama, you didn't build that thing.
Thanks, Obama.
Which he got hammered for, but there is a point. Like, and I remember when that came out. Do you remember that? He was like, if you have a small business and you're making money, it's not, you didn't build that. And it was a weird edit that I heard and got played on the news. But essentially what he was saying is, if you have a small business, how did you get there? You drove a road to get to work.
Yeah.
You needed taxes to get that infrastructure there. Everything, like your electricity power points in your small business aren't just there and just going into the ground and electricity. There's a whole infrastructure that's required for that. So the extreme people of like no government tend to not see that component of it, and that there needs to be some amount of socialism involved, or a social aspect.
Isn't that like how the system's supposed to work? You got the two polar opposites, and they're supposed to meet somewhere in the middle. But
I think that's why people say, or I've read that a conservative or a right government might be the one that actually has drug reform on their cards as part of their agenda. So,
and they're probably after the money's a bit more as well.
That's the angle, and that's probably what's going to get it through. It's doing gangbusters in the states that they've legalized it in America, like Colorado.
Do they tax it at all, or do the states tax it?
I think,
or is there no tax?
That's a good question. No, it goes to the states. It goes to the states, and that's why it's going to become such a hotbed issue in the next elections over in the US, because the other states are going to look at the states that got all that cash from that tax revenue.
Gimme.
It's crazy. It's something like 40%.
Fuck.
It's something like 40%. And then, like, I
fucking, how much brew are you Americans buying?
If you just Google...
Let me have a look. Yeah.
If you Google this term, I read an article, something along these lines, like, Colorado makes X per week tax from cannabis. It's crazy. I think it was something... It could be like $13-14 million a week, and I could be so mistaken that could be per day. I can't remember the article, but something should come up in that realm. Crazy numbers. Other states are going to see that, and they're going to want that. Money's going to talk. That's going to be what's going to be, takes away a lot of the flim-flammy last bits of morality stopping it coming through. Money slices through morality all the time. And in a time where there is so much financial burden around on the government,
they're going to jump at it, man. Like,
it's a magic bullet.
Look at the current situation in Australia. The government wants to stop all of this spending, and they need to get all this money to get their promise of, we're going to get us back in black, and they're blocking everything. So, if they can make some money out of that, and that kind of solves their problem, it makes sense. They're going to get some Labor voters over to their side because, they're, doing something for the people, I guess you could say. But they're going to get some of their supporters offside, and that's probably the way up, Once that tipping point goes, it'll happen like that, I reckon.
I agree, but I think in Australia, let's get a reality check here. What Alan Jones and Tony's coming out, they're totally just talking about medical considerations.
Yeah.
Medical trials to consider it to become used, prescribed legally. But that's a pretty far cry from taxing legal
100%
sale of it, you know, in
the
Australia.
tipping point hasn't happened yet.
A lot of people say that medical is the gateway to legal, and so whatever steps, you know, are taken in that direction, I guess, you know, it takes us towards that. But definitely watching America is an interesting case study. Just, the amount of tax that's floating around those states that are pulling in the revenue from legal sale of it. Like, I think Colorado's got more dispensaries than McDonald's or Starbucks or one of those big franchises is the statistic.
Imagine the amount of people that are making a fucking lot of money as well, now legitimately as well.
They had a lot of problems when they started.
Proper careers and shit.
Oh, totally. I was seeing there was like cannabis universities popping up now.
Fuck.
So, you know, take a course in cultivation or specializing in, like, you know, wholesaling and retail component of it, you know. And so there's, you know, so many strains and stuff over there. They're becoming so, you know, entrenched in the culture now. They've
like
got
new brands, new
edibles,
you know, and it's not just that industry. That is just the thing. Like, you know, you bring something like this in, they're going to start advertising, they're going to start marketing.
Yeah, they're going to
start, you know.
I think it was in the New York Times. There's been some print ads
so like TV's going to, you know, like the economy in general is going to be stimulated by this activity.
This is
one
of the weird
things. Not just, you know, that new industry's getting all the cash.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a slice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Including the government. It's such a no-brainer.
One of the biggest slice, you know, because think about it, 40% of it tax. I'm pretty sure it's some number like that. When you're breaking up the rest of that 60%, the retail, the, you know, cultivation and transport, all that's probably 40% is the biggest slice of the pie.
Probably.
When you break the rest of it up. So the government's making... And I think that's a good thing because...
And you think about... I think about it, right, from a retail perspective. How much margin would there be in that? How much outlay would there be to produce that? You know? If you're producing it yourself and you've got the infrastructure, the capital to build the infrastructure...
Yeah.
You fucking set the margins in that would be fucking massive,
it would
man.
Be, wouldn't it? Yeah.
It'd be so big.
When you think about it, you're essentially growing lettuce.
Yeah.
Now, I guess the yield cycle is a little longer, or tomatoes. Would it be equivalent?
You'd have to pay for the real estate, the electricity, the water, the fertilizer, all that kind of shit, the staff, you know, the shop front. Insurance. Could
you imagine if you could sell tomatoes at the prices that they sell cannabis?
It's pretty ridiculous.
Like, surely, probably the problem is that it's not an international, let alone nationally produced. What's the word I'm looking for? Product or, you know, plant. So like something like tomato, we're comparing it to something like tomato or whatever. That's, you know, mass produced.
Yeah.
But over time, you know, if more states and more medical requirements come into it and more sanctioned growers happen.
You go on to Coles and go to the fresh produce section and pick out your bits of burr.
This is the other thing, though, is that it's, you know, it's not like it's hard to grow yourself.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, so that's then...
There'll have to be niches of shit that you can't do yourself, but then, you know, and added value.
Isn't it easy to grow tomatoes yourself? How many people actually just grow that?
Yeah,
you know,
that's
I go
point.
and just buy my tomatoes.
Yeah, fuck that, I ain't growing tomato.
So, it's interesting to see, people like Alan Jones and Tony Abbott and all of that stuff. All of that subject is really well covered in that Culture High documentary.
I've just got it here. I think this is the most recent one I could find. In August, customers purchased more than 33 million in recreational cannabis.
33 million in a month in August.
Up from 29.7 million in July and 24.7 million in June.
33 million in a month. is over $1 million a day. So I think that might have been the statistic I've heard.
Holy shit, man.
More than $1 million a day, and 40% of that's going to the government, to the state government.
The marijuana tax numbers are also adding up. Since January the 1st, Colorado has brought in more than $45.2 million in taxes, licenses, and fees for recreational and medical marijuana.
Wow.
$45.2 million.
Wow. That's
pretty fucking impressive, man.
That's intense. And the thing is that,
Jesus.
you know, people that are more alarmist might hear something like that and it's like, it must be bedlam over there. And nothing must be getting done. And you know what? The world is not falling apart in those areas that have got those sales. And in fact, I was reading another article saying DUIs are massively down, crimes massively down. Well, not massively, but like significant.
It's down. Down is good enough. You know, people are chilled. You know, people are gaming more. Like it's hanging for the next day's update.
That seems what's happening.
You can grow tomatoes now too.
But at the same time, just one last important on this subject. While it seems like that, wow, it must be amazing, must be cool for those people that want to enjoy that in those areas. This Culture High documentary talks about the areas that are still policed heavily and the amount of people that are getting fucked over and put to jail for fucking stupid amounts of time. Really young people, mostly black people in America. It's like high proportion. It's like something like, what was the number? Like 5-1 or even 6-1, 7-1, like search and seizures with black to whites. And the usage of drugs is split exactly down the middle. Like there's no real race divide with drug consumption in America. So yeah, Culture High, really highly recommended documentary. If podcast listeners want to watch it in Australia, I think it's region coded on Vimeo. So if you know ways of like Vimeo. you know ways of like VPNing to sort of pretend you're an American, you can buy it on Vimeo and watch it there. It'll probably be released in Australia in due time, but yeah, check it out. I wanted to have a quick talk about video games. What have you been playing lately? Anything new?
Just finished BioShock Infinite. It's not new.
That's an old game, but you've been sitting on it for ages, haven't you?
Yeah, because I know it's Tang and it's fucking really good.
What kind of game is it?
First-person shooter. If you haven't played BioShock before?
I don't think I've played BioShock.
Third game in the series. First two were underwater. This one's in the air. It's and you've got powers. So it's like a first-person shooter with guns and shit. Yeah. And you've also got these things called, they're like tonics that you drink, and that gives you powers. And it's like an alternate...
Tonic. What song did they do? If you could only see the way.
Yeah, and then they do like a black and white one, and they're like in shallow water and shit. Yeah. Film clip, and it was like all arty and shit.
Tonic.
Yeah.
Really? I don't remember their film.
I'm pretty sure it was pretty arty and shit. No, it's really good. It's really good. I'm sure plenty of people have played it. And yeah, awesome storyline. I don't want to give the storyline away. If you've never played BioShocks, you should play BioShock.
Good for the story.
They're fucking really good storyline. Like alternate city, ultimate civilization.
First person shooter as well, so that sounds good.
And the first, you don't remember the first ones with the dudes with the underwater fucking big mask and the little girls? No?
No, I can't say that.
Fucking shit, man. BioShock is one of the, premier AAA titles.
So is
franchises.
Is it got a lot of cutscenes and
not so much cutscenes? So they're like in-game cutscenes, massive epic moments, and pushing the boundaries of visuals and storytelling and shit. Really, really, really good game.
Let me ask you a question. Not necessarily just about BioShock, but like those scenes where it's like it is a cutscene or it's like a dialogue in video games, right? Why are there still to this day, and I know that they can be turned off, but why are there subtitles in all of the scenes in video games? I've got a theory about why there is, but why is it always a default? Why would you put a movie in like a DVD and the default always there being subtitles? Wouldn't that be something that you would turn on?
It's
have it
less
there,
and less these days, but yeah,
it is getting less.
Much less.
I can't remember watching a game that you're playing that's got a cool cutscene in it, especially the start of a game that doesn't have subtitles. And it distracts.
I'm trying to remember the last game that I played that did have subtitles.
You know what?
The thing.
You know what?
Cutscenes have changed, man. They're not like FMV videos.
And
like
for people that are
be.
listening that have no idea that don't play video games, just
play some
a
fucking
cutscene.
video.
How would you
games.
define a cutscene in a video game?
Well, it's like a cinematic moment.
It's like
that
when the
takes
controls
takes the
you don't
control
do
away from the
anything.
player, and it's a cinematic moment.
Yeah.
And you get to see the surroundings, and it's a bit more of an arty, storytelling technique.
Yeah, and they can usually have better graphics because they don't need to deal with user input, so it's like a pre-rendered kind of thing, but not in terms of like it cuts to full motion video, which old games used to do
all
that
the time. Yeah, and you'd groan because of it, because it really took you out of the game.
Really?
Yeah.
Man,
And
I don't know.
Now you do the ones the in game. You need to have a decent PC that can hold the frame rate properly.
I don't know what it
and
is
can make it
about.
seamless.
Maybe it's because I'm just a little bit older and I saw arcade and home video games without any cutscenes or any FMV full motion video, and then, or if I did see one, it would be a cutscene that was so bog bad, and then there was this jump from when they figured out how to insert like a video file.
Mega Rays.
Even earlier than that, I'm trying to think of like the arcade Mad Dog McCree.
Yeah.
And there were other
That's probably the
arcade
first.
ones like that I can't remember off the top of my head. I think maybe the Terminator 2 game where you had the two guns mounted, had some Terminator footage.
Remember
the
that
start of it?
Terminator game I think you had on an Amiga?
Yeah.
And it was for fucking FMV of the truck going over the sewer.
That kind of stuff, right? And it was such a jump to see. And you knew it was a video, and you knew that it wasn't like a computer program that made these amazing graphics, but there was something about just getting
Pixelated
some
version
video.
of it. It was like,
Okay, but I've kind of drifted off topic here. Subtitles. Okay, so why? And here's my gripe.
It's not a big deal.
Here's my gripe. Here's why I don't like it. Okay. So I think that the concept of always having subtitles there came from an era in graphics where they were doing cut scenes, but they just could not animate a human mouth. And it was
facial
just would
expressions.
really take you off. And no matter how much detail they'd give to like a coat or the background or the space that they're in or an explosion happening, the human eye looks at eyes and mouth and face when somebody's talking. And if that's drawn animated shit, you so quickly can spot it.
Resident Evil 2 and shit. It reminds me of that.
You know?
A lot of the
So
Japanese
if there's subtitles,
games as
your
well
eyes
have subtitles.
are not doing that. And it's even if the... And here's the other thing that I think is that it might even come from a time in video games that were doing cutscenes that had really low res audio, and it might not be that like they've actually recorded some voiceover artists in a studio and they've
Can't
tried to
fucking
insert like an
understand
8-bit version of the file into this tiny like 16K memory Commodore 64. It's like, get ready, fight! You know, like those old like just crusty that have become classic like samples of kung fu. It's like, wah, wah, wah.
Like the Carmageddon sounds and shit. Yeah.
They were so shitty in the cut scenes that they had to subtitle them. A lot of people didn't know what the fuck was being said. And then they realised when we subtitle this shit, they don't look at the faces as much, and we don't have to animate the faces to get it as good, and people won't be like, this is shitty. They're reading the subtitles. And it's amazing, even when the audio is good, you still read it. Do you notice that?
But I reckon
You
that'd be...
still read it. Your eye can't help it. If you're watching a movie...
Yeah, I agree.
If you're watching a movie, it's in English and the subtitles are in English, do you not just sit there and read the fucking
did it?
subtitles?
Was San Andreas. GTA San Andreas, all of those cutscenes had subtitles, man.
Good example.
And that I'm pretty sure would have been from the mouth thing, you know. But I remember,
but
it was a battle between reading the subtitles and watching the
seeing
scene.
What's going on. Yeah,
because I'm like, oh fuck, I want to watch the scene.
It's not like it's unintelligible. It's so strange how your eye does read it.
Fucking
And my gripe is that today, honestly, the graphics are good enough to not to have to distract us down there with your subtitles.
In some games.
And I would be pissed if I was a graphic designer coming up with those awesome cutscenes. The way that they animate hair now, it's bullshit. That was always a weak point in the graphics of rendering a human as well, was the hair, long hair, and all of the characters that have short shaved heads, because it was just shit to animate. And
the other flip side of the coin is, what if there's really crucial game information that they're telling you over and, you know, you're not listening close enough?
That's a different case. And a good example would be Siphon Filter, where a cut scene doesn't cut and you're actually running and shooting, but Gabe, are you there, Gabe? Right? And as you say, crucial information, like, you got to use the third exit or you'll get your nuts cut off. And this is happening while you're shooting and shit. And I actually like having a subtitle there, because the subtitle usually lingers a bit after the actual voice has happened. So if you're dealing with headshot and old mate over here and fucking she's in your ear with crucial information, you can just use that as like, oh, I better look at that subtitle before it disappears. And then you look down and you read it. Okay, perfect use of subtitle. But yeah, I don't...
Isn't it a personal preference thing, though? I agree.
I don't understand why it's default. And
why do people use subtitles? It's a good question to ask. Put it in the comments, you know. Why do you... I don't use subtitles. I don't like subtitles. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, story-driven games that I've played recently, like Bioshock.
Borderlands.
Bioshock, no subtitles. Borderlands 2, no subtitles.
Did the first one?
Maybe.
I'm sure it did.
People tell us. I'm sure you people are playing these games tell us, because I can't remember. I played them fucking ages ago. Original Borderlands, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure Borderlands 2, no. What else have I played? Tomb Raider, recent Tomb Raider, definitely not.
Okay.
Like, awesome cutscenes in that. You want to talk about good cutscenes?
Okay, good.
Story driven.
It's not as prevalent as I remember it, but I seem to just...
And like you said, you can turn them off. So
yeah,
and you know, why do people turn on subtitles if English is your first language and you can understand shit? Why do people turn them on? Why? Because you know that there'd be people out there that would be shitty if that option wasn't available.
Yeah,
just as much as people are shitty when it's enabled on as default.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Why would you be shitty if they weren't there? I'm curious to know. I don't get it. I would be happy if there was no more subtitles.
If it is used and it's on by default, and as you say, a lot of the games that you've been playing recently don't seem to have that now, which is, you know, that's cool. But I think it might be a vestigial tale from, as we were saying, when the graphics were shittier, you wanted to kind of pull your eye away from looking at the face all the time, and maybe the audio was crusty and there was actually intelligibility issues there. But yeah, it bugged me. I think it was Just Cause 2 that triggered that.
Yeah, and that's
an old
towards
game.
The end of that generation. Yeah. Fuck, an awesome game. Where's Just Cause 3, man? Fuck. It's been ages.
Have they ever talked about doing it?
I haven't seen shit.
They're going to demand like $10 million on Kickstarter and then think about doing it.
Early access.
Yeah, awesome. I read a weird article the other day, and I guess it makes sense that they do it, but, you know, I just never came to my mind. The government tests all of the sewers for drugs.
Fucking what?
So there's like websites and stuff you can go to.
Like the shit.
Yeah, for illegal drugs. And not just like illegal drugs, but everything. So there's full analysis of all of the sewage effluent for not just drugs as well, but like they figure out like, oh, look at this. There's a massive increase in protein or fats, or like they break down, like they can look at a population's diet by analysing sewage. And it makes sense if you think about it. And I guess that they would
it's
do
probably
that.
the best way to do it.
I
if you
don't
wanted
think
to
that
analyse
every
that.
single bit that flows through it, like I'm sure it's just a periodical thing. They
get
have
a sample.
team that goes down. But
Fucking
the
what a
illegal
job.
drug usage statistics that I read in this article, I wish I'd had it off the top of my head that actually, if you just go, see it on the taskbar down there, there's the sticky notes, the yellow sticky notes icon.
The drug testing of wastewater at Adelaide's 4 sewage collection stations also reveals that while heroin and cannabis use has increased, it has not been as steep as in the same period. Then the fuck are they looking at our shit?
That's pretty crazy, eh?
That's pretty full on.
So yeah, I thought that was something that, you know, the listeners might find interesting. Maybe we should, like, you know, troll and put weird shit, like flush weird shit, like choose a day, you know, try and get somebody that's on the inside of the sewage company to leak, like, when the next tests are going to be.
What's something you don't like and you want to have a war on? I don't know.
No, just something really bizarre, like, I don't know, like, you know,
bleach.
like go to the fish markets and buy as many squid as you can and, like, de-ink them into buckets. This is like buckets of squid ink. And just, like, everyone flush, like, gallons of squid ink down the toilet on the day that they test. And they'll be like, what does this mean? What drugs are they smoking now?
They're taking over the world.
This is crazy. The other thing I wanted to talk about, a bit of a whinge, bit of a gripe. We've talked about it briefly before in other episodes, I'm sure. Is just the state of commercial radio. It's just...
I haven't had to listen to it recently, thank God.
It's funny, I saw a post by previous podcast guest Mitch on social media the other day griping about Double J, which is the, you know, how Double J is the new version of Triple J, which is meant to be the more old school Triple J.
Yeah.
And Mitch was saying, like, you know...
Didn't it have that Maddie as, like, the figurehead for it?
Miff Warhurst. Yeah, the Spicks and Specs chick. Yeah, no, she's... I don't think... I think like she's the main host, but...
DJ.
Yeah. She launched it and stuff. But I haven't honestly been listening to much Double J, but Mitch was just saying, you know, people in their 30s and 40s can actually handle a bit of distortion on their guitars, and they can handle songs that are, like, above 90 BPM, you know. So apparently they're playing quite bland. It sounds like they're playing a lot of Travis. That's what I think of when I hear
Travis.
More distortion and faster, please. It's like, what is always rain on me? Oh, that's the worst fucking song ever. It was a
Cole's
huge
music
song, and it propelled a shitty band way bigger than they should have been. Yeah, that's not my gripe, not Travis. But Mitch was saying that, you know, fucking, you know, we grew up on Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins and Soundgarden and, you know, bands like that. You know, we can handle a bit more, please. My gripe is actually Triple M. I know I can hear people groaning now, people going, Barnsey, what the fuck are you doing listening to Triple M? Look, I don't by choice. I listen to podcasts, and I've got my car rigged up, so it's like a pretty easy, you know, lead into my phone, and I'm listening to podcasts in the car most of the time. But you know what? Just sometimes it's difficult to organise, and I've got a pretty shitty phone. That's a whole other rant. It's actually P-Source's old phone, so I'm very grateful for the use of the old phone. But it is showing its age. I was reading an article about it the other day, actually, that, you know, old technology is actually still fine. It's just like things that get updates now, like smartphones. Every time a new generation of phone comes out, all of the old apps get updated because they're anticipating all this extra power. So old phones just get shittier and shittier. Even if you don't install new apps and just do basic shit on them, those apps become so resource hogged because they're used to seeing iPhone 6s with, like, quad core processors. Anyway, my phone does not play nice sometimes, and I can't get the podcast to play that I want or whatever, and I just revert to Triple M on the radio. And also sometimes I'm driving, like, not enough distance or time to justify Like I don't like a long podcast like Rogan, like a 3-hour podcast. Sometimes I don't like to like break it up too much. So I won't put it on in the car. I'll wait until I've got a better long stretch. So I'm listening to the radio a lot, and I started listening to Triple M a lot. Now here's why I listen to Triple M, because they do play some fucking good songs. They sucker me in with like 10% of shit that they play. They sucker me in. They'll play, a Fooey song, or they'll play a Rage Against the Machine song occasionally, or a Soundgarden song, or, Living End, or, a good Chisel song, or something like that, Chisel's their benchmark, but, I don't mind one now and then. But then there was a period where I started driving and listening to it when the Grill Team was on, which is their morning, DJ collection, which is Matty Johns.
Yeah, Matty Johns. Yeah.
Who else is on it?
Mark
Geyer, and some other dude that I don't think is a footy player.
Fat dude. He's like, who the fuck are you, mate?
Who's pisses.
I'm sure he's done more than me, but who the fuck are you, mate?
Pisses me off, but not so much that I'd single him out for my particular gripe. But what I noticed, right, was that, and as I say, I'm not really particularly wanting to tune into this shit, but I just, by circumstance, was exposed to it for a period. And I listened to it, and it started off, I heard when that Grill Team first came on the radio and was like trying to become the next sort of established morning radio, thing. Get comfy in their time slot and then start to be the selling point, because the morning radio is really where the money is for all of those big commercial radio stations.
For sure.
So they end up being on the billboards that you love to see.
Yeah, fucking, that's
with that guy.
What was it? We
joke.
like the paparazzi. Any type of pizza, really.
That was on their billboard.
That was their ad.
Their big.
That was their tagline to get you to watch their show. What the hell?
The whole
mate?
thing with it, and that billboard kind of ties in with it, was that they were going for that kind of, how do I say it?
Anti-Today FM.
Western Sydney, Ocker kind of.
Tradie in your youth.
Yeah, good example. Tradies, and it was very lighthearted and had some very funny moments in it. I'll give it to them. They had some very funny moments. I've heard
of some decent stuff, and they had some decent guests and shit on. And,
And as I say, when they do play music, they'd be dropping a half-decent song that would keep me listening to it. So I noticed over a period of time that they'd then start to try and take on some current affairs issues, right? And it's like obvious when somebody's taking on a particular opinion,
I completely hear what you're saying with this shit, man, and it's the reason why. If I'm listening to the radio,
these guys are smarter than what they're saying.
702, man, fucking oath. It's
way smarter, and they're playing to a demographic.
It's the project on radio. That's what it is.
Yeah, but to a different audience than the project.
Yeah, that's right. But it's that formulaic,
flannel-wearing, Western Sydney,
that's right,
probably a little bit racist, but not
close-minded.
Loves the footy,
loves the league.
Two legends of footy as you.
Matty Johns is a legend. Right. Doesn't matter that he's like.
And then when they started talking about these freaking current affairs issues, they just get this really deliberately dumb stance on that you knew someone like Matty Johns. He's not, he's not a super intellectual, but he's not that, he got really these bloody Muslims starting to talk like that on it. I was like, man,
are you serious? Matty Johns
morning radio. I'm paraphrasing, but starting to sound like an Ocker version of Alan Jones. Well, if you want to go to a sporting event and there's a threat, then I don't see any problem why you shouldn't be patted down. Now, I'm just picking something out of the air for an example, but you know how it's like that whole come on guys, we need to give up a fair bit of our liberties here because shit's getting pretty gnarly here. It was just like this weird constructed conversation, it felt like. And when it went over the line to me, where I was like, this is becoming right-wing propaganda, was when they would cut to the hourly news breaks. Now, the chick that they have doing the news on Triple M is just grinds me really badly. So sensationalist, and the inflections that she puts on certain words are just there to get above the sound of the drill at the building site to go, what? And like, you know, what was one? I'm thinking of a really good example. Grant Hackett got done for Grant Hackett allegedly says that he's having performance enhancing drugs, but there's no real evidence to substantiate at this point. You know, just like this, I don't know. I'm not doing a good example of it, but just really sensationalist.
They do it all the time.
Fucking news.
The news people on radio do shit me. It's a very formulaic, like you're saying, tonal thing that they've got, and they've all got it.
There's one thing of picking editorial content and shaping stories and picking subjects to cover. That's one thing. But to then kind of impart opinion and like superimposed inflection on certain parts of what you're saying, and really obviously be on a side of a fence about a subject that you're talking about as a news report.
Yeah.
You know, and we've cut away from the ex-footy players that are riffing on it, and we've gone to a proper news broadcaster for the hourly break, and you're starting to put this opinion in. But then when the line was crossed with me is they did this thing where they let the grill team make an opinion about every story after she says every story. So not even waiting until the news break is done. Like each story, it would be commentary from Maddie or
what
Gaia.
the fuck, man?
And it was during the time where shit was getting gnarly in Australia, like, you know, terror threats and, you know, raising ASIO alarms and stuff like that. And it was always like, you know, and it was always asking, what do you think, boys? So it would be the story of like, so, you know, the head of ASIO who's come out and said that the terror threat should be raised, and probably will be within the next few days, and, you know, thinks that, you know, there's imminent, could be not imminent threat, but you know how he's talking about that language of the residents. So boys, what do you think of that, boys? You know, and it's still in like, it's got like the news like theme in the background. You know, this bulletin news. It's like, this is the fucking newsbreaker. We're cutting to Matty Johns for his opinion. Oh, I think that this is a very scary situation. I don't know, you know, like, it's not the Australia I remember, I'll tell you that.
Oh, you serious?
I'm not quoting exactly things, but these are the kind of things that were slipping out. And that if you put that in the hands of someone like Alan Jones or someone that's more obviously right-wing, is like, you know, not the Australia that I know, but it's this like, Ocker matey, like, let's have a beer and I'm just going to kind of drop this, and it's like smeared in all these laughs of like, oh, geez, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just not the Australia, you know, you grew up in, was it, boys? Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Hey, next story. It's just it's very manipulative, and I didn't like it. And
it's very formulaic.
Listening to that,
and
shit.
I know you're going to give me shit, but give 702 a go. Honestly, if you
ABC,
give the drive program in the afternoon, or I'm not sure in the morning. I don't know about the morning. I can't really say in the morning, but in the afternoon, if you're coming home, I'm pretty sure it's Richard Glover. You know, it's pretty fair, balanced, and interesting, and none of this formulaic bullshit with crap fucking news promos.
What did I expect? I'm listening to fucking Triple M, and I think I'm gonna get that's a good news source. It's not even a good fucking music source. I
completely agree. And like recently, when I've had to listen to music, radio,
ABC radio,
all the same,
drop, you know, a Slayer song now and then.
No. And that's the thing. And yes, you know, and sometimes it's, you know, some ridiculous fucking subject with, you know, old granny calling up. And, oh yeah, love you, Richard. You know, fucking,
she loves
and
the dick.
That's when you're reminded that this is fucking local ABC radio.
Yeah.
But, you know, like he has like, you know, like a political rap, and he gets like the political reporters from the ABC, and they say what the story is, and they might have, you know, press her about some details, they don't really have their opinion on that. They don't, you know.
It seems more bipartisan.
Yeah, it's like, you know, here's the facts for you to make up your mind.
Yeah. And everything's going to have a slant, but yeah, some of that stuff.
Give it a go. Just give it a go. Cause
just hearing that whole, you know, let's become your mate, the Triple M Grill Team thing, we're like, I'm your mate, and we're just having jokey jokes, and we're talking about, you know, funny old rugby league stories, and then we're going to start to comment on, you know, this shit that not only should you not be talking about and aren't really talking very educated on, and I'm not saying that I am.
And they're entitled to their opinion like anybody else.
Totally, but yeah, it's just, it seems a little bit disingenuous, and you kind of get this feeling that the things that they're saying, if you're having a beer with those guys just one-on-one, that they wouldn't
towing
have those
the
same
company
opinions.
line a bit.
It's strange, yeah. It's just a strange environment at the moment in general in Australia. Just with that ASIO dude coming out and raising threat assessments, and
the dude who looks like he's got fucking some virus. He's fucking
the ASIO guy,
sick, man.
You reckon?
Yeah, like red rings around his eyes. It's like he's fucking, you know. Well, Walking Dead fucking
Let's
virus.
go on the other side of things, and let's say, sorry about the bump. Let's say that every single threat that's been proposed by the government, and as gnarly as the media says things are, is actually the case, and in fact is actually being downplayed, and that the stuff that ASIO comes out and talks about is like only when shit gets to the brink. Like if you spoke to somebody in Asia that could let you peek behind the curtain, they'd be like, you'd be afraid because it's actually full on, like, you know, back there, and the stuff that we say is like kind of bad is super bad. Let's say that's the actual situation. Wouldn't the head of ASIO look like that? You know,
like I'm not saying fuck it,
of like all of these like cruisy Australians taking shit for granted.
Tony Abbott, man.
He's fucking dealing with the most cutthroat fucking people like every day. I don't know. I don't think it's like
look
that.
at Tony Abbott as well, man. You look at, I've been watching him this week. He's been on news heaps, and he looks older. He looks stressed
that
up.
Thing with being a leader.
You know, same with Obama, man. He looks so much like, you look at when he was campaigning. He looks like a young
aging
man.
is crazy.
It's ridiculous. It must take so much out of you. It must be such a hard job.
Yeah, dude, no question. And it's going to age more. Like, dude, the responsibility, the stress, you know.
The amount of people that would be pulling you in each different direction all the time.
Totally.
It'd just be like, oh, fuck off.
Totally. Well, the thing is, right, I can be so like conspiratorial sometimes and think that there's a plan or an orchestration behind everything. But I can't help but think that there is some kind of planning to making Obama look the way he does, the way he ages as fast as he does. Like, it's crazy how much older that guy looks than
you
when
reckon
he started.
It's like
I think that he was grey when he went into being even a senator, and that was some people grey really early.
He's like in his 50s or something, isn't he?
So I reckon that to get into president, you're going to need to look young, vibrant, healthy. You're going to this Bush, no more Bush. We need you to and so dye your hair, super healthy, super fit, and he's still a healthy dude and stuff. But and it's not just his grey hair. You can see it in his face. It the skin
just looks
has
tired,
just drawn out, and
more
it looks tired
and
stuff. But I can't help but think that maybe not with a sinister reasoning, but there is actually some kind of planning to. And you know what? Towards the end of it, stop using the dye, man. Just let it all go out. And don't comb it as much, maybe. And,
I'm sure that kind of shit would
do a few conferences.
If not that,
after doing like a 36-hour run of dealing with, international flights and stuff. And then that will portray this look of like, look at what it's doing to this dude. Man, that must be so intense to do. I don't know.
I reckon that's definitely a part of it, you know. Like,
well,
have stylists and stuff.
You know,
and all
you're
that
on.
kind of stuff.
It's amazing how many people are on a whim about voting. It's silly that the like issues and like history and stuff don't come into some people's decision. It's just based off this like looking at the person right now on TV and I could swing either way, and that little bit of sympathy of like, oh, dude's getting older and man, it looks like he's been stressing about some stuff. Like, maybe that just pushes you enough, or some people enough, to go, oh, yeah.
No doubt.
He's all right.
How petty
but he's not getting re-voted. He's not
that
re-campaigning.
Is going to make you fucking vote for somebody, for fuck's sake.
Who knows?
You know, like, that's ridiculous. Come on. If you're voting for somebody because you think you feel sorry for them.
Not just because just one extra little part.
Yeah.
It's another little feather on the scale of all the other stuff that you might be like,
yeah.
And it might not be a conscious reason why you've decided. It just adds to, but... Tony Abbott, I haven't noticed him getting super old. Like,
no, it's not too bad. But
how old is Tony Abbott? I don't know how old he is.
I don't know. He'd have to be in his 50s or 60s. Man. No, he wouldn't be 60s.
No,
he'd have to be in his 50s.
He'd be in his 50s.
Have to be.
He's always been a pretty fit dude. Like, I mean, there's the famous Speedo interview, which is just so bad. But yeah, it is pretty crazy how quickly leaders seem to age.
He's 56.
56. But is it because when they become a leader, you're seeing them like so often?
More.
It's like every little incremental change you're noticing, and then you get so used to them incrementally changing, you then see footage of them 4 months ago. Holy fuck!
You do the same with your own pictures and stuff as well. So I'm sure that's definitely
like, think of how much camera time there is on Obama. You know, like how much of his life is documented for the public to disseminate and go along as he's getting older.
And once it's over, you know, he won't have... It must be such a change, you know. He would have certainly had a lot leading up to it, but when he became president, it would have just, you know, gone exploded, all that kind of stuff, the attention, the pressure. And then when it finishes, it's just going to go back to almost virtually nothing, you know.
Yeah.
And it's a small period of his life, really, that he's sacrificing. And it'd just be insane to change gears like that so relatively quickly. It'd be hard to do, man. And, like, you know, giving up that power and not being in the spotlight, I'm sure you'd still have sway and all that kind of shit in certain circles, but you're not the president anymore, you know.
Be interesting to see post-presidency Obama, won't it?
Like George W. Bush,
he just
never fucking hear about him, man. He's not on any panels or anything, you know.
All he did was those artworks.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Which are really strange, like weird. Some would say, like, some torment. You see some torment in some of those pictures, like this, or somebody questioning. I don't know. But yeah, Bush Jr., pretty much one of the most unactive post-presidency presidents. Like Jimmy Carter, man. Like,
well, Clinton, man.
Look at Clinton fucking now.
Hell, man.
Well, if Hillary runs, which he
seems like a cool dude. I always like Clinton, man. He seems like a cool bloke. And I don't know the politics of the era or anything like that. Yeah. I'm completely basing it off what I've seen. And, you know, it's probably a shit thing for me to base it on.
I'll do anything.
But from what I've seen, he seems like a reasonable guy.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I get a little pissed off with. Like, I hear some of the things that he reasonably discusses post-presidency. It's like, dude, you're in a position to fully do something about that. And here you are sitting around at your buddy $250K an hour, you know, going, oh, I think that the government today should... You were the government. But he did do some good stuff. And he does seem to be a pretty chill... cruisy guy, like very smart too. Like, I've seen him a few of his speeches, and I always just get annoyed. It's like, you know who else annoyed me? It was Bob Carr. When he became ambassador the Australian ambassador or whatever.
The foreign minister.
It was all like, I think,
He was foreign minister.
Foreign minister. That's what I mean. When he became foreign minister, he came out about how he thinks drug law should be reformed. I'm like, dude, how about when you were the premier of my state?
And he was in federal politics. He was a pretty hot top player of the federal Labor Party. He's a top minister. You've probably got more sway as a minister, not just a member, but a minister in a federal government than you would as a premier of a state government. I don't know.
Just at a state level, he should have, dealt with it. Well, he had the power to do it. Yeah, I found that quite pompous, and that is quite an accurate description of Bob Carr.
And he came out after they lost the election
as one of the biggest douchebags.
So many fucking people. He fucking ragged on so many people.
Is half of it.
He's a prick, apparently.
I'm not claiming to say that I've read his book, but I've certainly read some excerpts. My God, not attending stuff because of inadequate accommodation and demanding business class and this real douchebaggery that was quite disgusting to read about.
I remember
the taxpayers.
It was labelled a boon when they got him in, so they would have gone to him and said, "Come on, man, come into the Labor. We need you. We need you in the ministry. Come back to federal politics." And we'll make it worth your while. And then when that stuff started to erode, he's like, "Hey, where's my fucking jet? I didn't come back for no fucking economy class, bitch."
Right, so that was part of the enticement back.
They went after him.
I was done, and I'm going to come back. I'll do it, but perk me.
He's got some scrawny Asian wife, and he's like, "Well, I'm busy smashing her." Come on, Julia. You're going to have to get one, and then I'll come back.
What a douchebag. Seriously, man. Come out about changing drug law reform and very rich. Have you ever noticed how, I don't know, I find it funny. I like metal music, I like heavy music, but have you ever noticed that everything that's black is just metal? It's just black is just associated with metal all the time.
Isn't it? Like hell and death and
yeah,
sorrow and shit.
And when you look into it, what I believe it originates from is people that want to actually confront death and talk about it and sing about it to deal with maybe a issue with it. So it's not so much celebrating death as much as exposing it and bringing it out into the light. And but I sometimes just laugh at how everything that's black is metal. And the case in point is, if you've seen these black roosters, I think they're black roosters. Just Google black rooster. And they've genetically modified. I don't know if it's even a genetic modification or if it's just a breed that they've managed to selectively breed. But it's these...
What is it, sorry?
Black rooster? Black roosters? Black chickens, maybe? I'm pretty sure it's black roosters. So, yeah, I don't know if it's genetically tweaked or if they've just bred it. But they're completely black. And they're I've just seen it on all of these metal Facebook pages and stuff, and all these metal dudes going, "Man, I want to buy one of these roosters."
Is it one of these ones?
There should be an article about it that says the black roosters are so metal, and they're worth. You can buy one for $8,000 for a rooster, and it's completely black. And in this article, they pry open one of its mouth just to show you the inside of its mouth in the photo. It's completely black, so its gums, its tongue, apparently its internal organs, its meat is black. It's completely black all the way through. And so there's all underneath the article is just all these metal heads I'm filling a coop with black roosters. That's it. I am buying many black roosters. This is so metal. We now have a new mascot. for life. I think that's one of them. See how the comb is completely black and the like skin around the eye is completely black and all of the like, you know, chin droopy skin, that's all black. And there's a photo of them one somewhere that's like that mouth being held open, the full inside of that mouth is completely black.
What the fuck, man?
And I'm pretty sure that I was reading that the meat is black as well, but I don't think you eat roosters, do you? Red rooster?
No,
You don't get rooster at Red Rooster,
you don't
do
eat
you?
rooster. I don't think so.
And they're not red.
They're not red, no.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure you don't eat roosters. But
Black rooster meat. The chicken's body is all black, even the organs, meat.
yeah, even the organs.
Here we go.
This is the article. Got a nice find. So scroll down a bit. I think they'll show the mouth being held open, maybe. Yeah, check this out.
Oh my god.
People that aren't watching, it's like it's so freaky.
It's black.
It's just everything's black about this bird. So
That's freaky, man.
yeah, I just found it funny, and I don't know if this is the same article because the article I was reading was actually orientated towards this being very metal.
Right.
You can buy this extremely
check
metal.
that out. Check that out.
Wow.
Hang on, let me bring it up.
So I guess you can eat them? Is that for
I
eating?
guess so, yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's so strange. So yeah, that's an interesting little factor.
Let's just see what it says here. I don't know why you'd want to eat something that's as black as a black hole. But don't ever make the mistake of slaughtering it for a quick snack because one chicken costs around $2.5 grand.
$2.5 grand, okay.
For comparison, 15 average chickens would cost you just $85, while other special breeds cost about $149.
Far out.
That's carnage.
Even the bones are black. So yeah, that's a crazy animal.
You black.
It's metal rooster. It is a rooster or it's a chicken? It's chicken. This chicken's body. Yeah. There you go.
That was a rooster with the shit on it. Oh, maybe chickens do have the gobbledygook.
I have no
The
idea.
Harold bits.
I ain't a farmer, even though I'm known as Barnsey.
For Jupiters.
I ain't got no barns.
Harold's for Jupiters.
What?
You don't remember Harold's for Jupiters?
No. What the fuck is that?
From Neighbours, you know, Harold. Harold, he's for Jupiters. The fucking chicken neck bits. He's for Jupiters.
Waggly skin. Oh, that's a cruel part of aging. And he was a pretty fat guy. I think it was more from, but even still, like, you know,
It
seems to be
vagina look.
like all of your skin seems to continue to grow when you get older. Like we were talking about Obama looking older. Like that's a lot of this. Like skin loses its tautness, loses moisture and droops a bit. But the neck skin, man, it's so full on. Like especially in women, it's like it just grows out, and it's just like this. Like it seems like an evolutionary. I don't know. Is it just there to indicate this is an old person? Don't mate. Move on to
Maybe.
younger necks, more supple necks.
Probably just what happens to your neck when you get old, unfortunately.
We managed to engineer the scarf, so I guess we evolved past it. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is pretty funny. So, well, not funny. There's a funny component of it that comes out of a pretty unfunny situation. It's the whole, you know, demonizing of, you know, Muslims at the moment in Australian media at the moment, and the silly shit that people are coming out and talking about. Yeah, there is some crazy stuff, but out of everybody, I've found the most amusing tidbits from I don't know how you say her last name. Is it Lambi? Jacqui Lambi?
Jacqui Lambi, yeah, the fucking Palmer United.
She a senator?
Yeah,
Oh, man.
Northern Territory, I think.
Okay, so here's where first my radar started going off about this woman. It was pretty much the first time that she went on national TV after becoming a senator. And I don't think I saw much of her leading up to, like, her actually winning.
Oh, there was a bit. Was a
bit.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
She's like the sensationalist member of the Palmer United Party.
Sensation. Yeah.
Apart from Clive Palmer himself.
Well, my first like alarm bells of like, what the fuck have we got here that went off? Well, when she was doing, I think it was a radio interview, and she was being asked about if she was single or not, and what
I remember this came up on a, again, they made this newspaper thing, Lambo.
And you're like, yeah, you're single, and she's like, yeah, looking for a man, you know. He's got to be.
She fully talks like that too.
Oh, it was.
She fully talks
like that. Yeah. Kind of sniggle laughing. Yeah, I'm looking for a man. He's got to be. What did she say? I can't remember exactly what she says. Like, he's got to be tall. He's got to be rich. He's got to have a good package. You know, it just came out, and it's just like, oh, it's just like, you know, the type. It's like a full like communal trailer park, northern Queensland. You know, just. I was like, what the hell? How did this person get to this position? Now, I know the Clive Palmer Party is this wacky new element of Australian politics.
I think she was like going on like, you know, the full pro mining angle. I'm not 100% certain.
Really?
But I think she was going like the full pro mining. You know, let's fucking, and like there's a lot of mining activity in that area of Australia.
Pro mining.
I'm pretty sure that was her platform.
But wasn't one of Palmer United's things get rid of mining tax? Or did they want to keep it? I can't remember.
Well, if they were into mining, personal interest into mining, which I'm pretty sure Clive Palmer do have, wouldn't they want to get rid of the mining tax?
Good point. Yeah, that's where his money's from, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure. Well, he owns the fucking resort on Coolum as well. That's his other fucking thing. Yeah.
So he would want to see that gone for that reason.
Yeah, and he's, you know, less government, less taxes, you know, kind of shit.
But as soon as she came out of that, and I know it was a kind of like end of the interview on a radio question, but it was like, man, what have we got here? It just had like,
she's a full radical, like, you know,
feels of Pauline Hanson coming back,
fully, man.
You know, feels of like a Mal Meninga level of what are you doing in politics. You know?
Oh man, I gotta find it. Fuck, it's so gold.
And then that started to turn into, well, what was some of the things she started coming out and talking about? She started talking about Sharia law, you know.
Yeah, and fucking burqas and shit.
You know,
kind of stuff.
And some pretty, you know, crazy inflammatory stuff. You know, the weird thing is that like a lot of batshit crazy stuff, but there was also some stuff that the problem with somebody that's like, you know, mouthing off talking points like that is sometimes they touch on one or two subjects that, you know, should actually be discussed, but not with the loaded, you know, tone and environment that it's brought up in that fashion. But like Sharia law, it's never going to be enforced in Australia. There's absolutely no Australian should have any fear that there is going to be Sharia law imposed in Australia. And that's basically what she was saying. Is that, you know, there's these extreme, you know, Muslims that want to impose it in this country. And that's just, you know, that's just ridiculous. But,
Here we go. Senator Lambi has refused to back away from her comments. Let me see. Hang on. That the burqa should be banned and Muslims adhering to Sharia law should get out of the country. Yeah. So Clive Palmer has come out and said, shut the fuck up.
So it's gone from like Asians to...
Here we go. On Sunday, she went further, claiming Islamic law involves terrorism and the burqa is a national security risk. When it comes to Sharia law, to me, it obviously involves terrorism. Mr. Palmer told Fairfax Media Senators Lambi's views were not PUP policy. Party policy is determined by a meeting of the members and is announced by the leader, which is him.
Well, she's like obviously had some very basic schooling. Someone sat her down and given her some talking points and probably butchered half of them because the like silly sweeping statements. When you listen to somebody that's got a bit more education about it, talking about the same kind of stuff. Like, before I get into that, let me just address some of the shit she's talking about. So the whole, like, burqa, niqab, that whole debate. The first reason it was brought up, again, it was a very orchestrated thing, I felt, by Tony Abbott, by even bringing up that their government should look at placing a ban on people wearing a burqa into Parliament House. And
which has since been overturned now. It was in place for a day.
But then there was this like dramatic, and it was completely in the news as soon as it was happening. It's like this dramatic like act of Tony Abbott stopping Julia Bishop, like contacting Julia Bishop and saying, "Stop this! No, let's not pursue this. Let's just drop. Us pursuing this ban." And then there was this talk of like there's this like glass area in Parliament House where school kids get sent to, because when school kids are there, teachers want to be able to talk and explain what's going on. So it's a glassed off area that's like, sound isolated. And then it was like, the suggestion was all of the people that wear burqas go into this glass room. And I mean, one of the interesting things that I found out pretty quickly when you digged a little deeper than your, sensationalist news reports was, number one, up until that point, there had been actually no request of anybody wearing a burqa wanting to enter Parliament House.
No.
So it wasn't like they were faced with this on a daily basis, or, it was like, we need to put a stop to something that's been happening all the time. It's like no one in a burqa wanted to sit in there. So
it's a stupid example, but you do want people to be proactive rather than reactive, though. It wasn't something to be proactive about, in my opinion.
It seemed very like orchestrated and meant to sort of become a talking point for a while.
But on the other hand, if somebody had to come in and something did happen, don't you think people would then come around and go, "Why were you letting people in with their heads covered? Why didn't you see the threat before this happened?" You know what I mean? So
this is the other thing.
It's a tough position to be, either way.
If you're truly just coming from a common sense, level-headed, look at it, isn't there some merit, some reasoning to the point that there are certain situations where somebody that's that concealed in identity is problematic?
Whether that equals too much of a stretch, and I don't know if it is with their beliefs or whatever, for them when they're first coming in, to go into a secure room with a security dude, show your face, right, sweet, you're all good, no problem, give them a pass, you know who they are, they're not a terrorist, whatever, let them roam the building for however they like, whatever they like.
And I'm sure that protocol is in place for many situations already, there's got to be, there's
that makes common sense.
Actual Arab countries, I'm sure they have.
But are they even protesting that? Are they saying, look, we can't even do that. We're not allowed to show our face to anyone. Is that, I don't know. It's
or is there some way of having some kind of identity system where, they've got an approved, like they can pre-apply to attend some highly secure area that they want to attend without removing head garb, and they've got a pre-approved identity that then can be referenced by a thumbprint or something on the day.
Whatever.
These are all more logical approaches to it, and I'm sure there's people that have thought about this and have stuff like that in place. But I mean, when you listen to people that are more educated talk about this, like not people like fucking Jacqui Lambi or even Tony Abbott with the more sensationalist things that he said. Like, one of the interesting debates that we've seen recently was when Sam Harris was on Bill Maher's show.
Yeah, that was pretty full on.
And that had Ben Affleck as the guest. And for people that, haven't seen that episode, basically Ben Affleck was one of a panel of 3, and then Sam Harris is actually a guest that was brought onto the show later in the show that is kind of meant to be like the panel stops talking for a while and lets this new guest kind of come out, talk about his subject or whatever he's promoting, and then the panel opens back up and it becomes everyone talking. And Sam Harris is, somewhat famous, talker on like atheism and breaking down religion and things like that. He's got a lot of opinions on Islam and how it's problematic, and not that it's not about Muslims. He's more about the religious doctrine of Islam and some of the problems that are inherent in that. Basically, he went on that show and started talking about some of that stuff and just got shot down by Ben Affleck, like in a really kind of, in my opinion, douchey, smarmy way, just kind of, cutting him off. And as I said, this was a part of the show where this guest was meant to come out and have at least a few minutes of establishing what they're talking about, and Affleck was jumping in on him on that time. It was only a few minutes that he was out, and Affleck was giving him shit about, it's just dumb and racist, and what they were talking about was not about race at all. It was about, and
he was very defensive and on the back foot from the start of that whole show, not just that section of it too. He was very on the back foot.
Ben Affleck.
I thought, I was like, you might have some good points, but you're not expressing them very well, and you're coming off as, pretty douchey.
Yeah. The thing with Ben Affleck is that it was weird. He was the biggest fucking douchebag for fucking years. I just hated that guy so much. Not in just who he was as a person, but all of his work and stuff. But then he started pulling out really good movies. And he had this time where he kind of dipped out of the mainstream limelight for a little while.
One where he was all gruff and shit. That was pretty good.
CIA one.
Remember? And it was in the 70s or some shit.
Are you talking about Argo?
Argo, that's it. Yeah,
that amazing.
Fucking awesome.
And he directed that as well. And he kind of disappeared. I think he got married to Alias and had a kid. What's her name? Jennifer Garner.
Why wouldn't you?
But kind of, wasn't thrust into, limelight for a while, and people kind of forgot about him. And then when he came back, he did a wise thing. He came back really strong and did Argo and some The Town. That's a really good movie.
Batman.
Well, he's going to be the next Batman. Yeah.
We'll see how that's going to that'll either be his downfall or his triumph.
Female Robin.
What?
Got leaked today.
What?
Got leaked today.
You know what else got leaked today? New Avengers trailer.
Avengers 2, yeah.
Ultron.
I haven't watched the trailer yet.
Oh my fucking God.
But apparently, I just read the title of the thread on the Rogan board that said, first look Avengers 2, Ultron and Hulk armor.
Yeah.
What's this?
Well, this is the thing. We're getting off topic.
We're getting off track, yeah. Let's come back to Avengers 2. Okay, let's just remember that we're going to come back and talk about that. But okay, we'll fucking talk about Ben Affleck. That's how we got onto it. The thing with Ben Affleck, he was saying that he was kind of douchey all through that episode of Real Time. The thing is that he is a lefty liberal, a Hollywood lefty liberal. And that's actually not a bad place to be on Real Time, because it is a very left show. And I actually thought that most of the show he was doing actually okay, and he's smart enough on a few subjects, but I think on the Islam thing, he really started to struggle to swim pretty quickly, and as I say, jumped the gun into a very, very calm-headed Sam Harris that's fucking, he's not going to take bait in arguments and stuff like that, he'll just let you whinge like Ben Affleck did, and then just hit you with like, you know, facts. But yeah, basically one of the things that I found interesting from that debate, and it's such a complex subject, all I can do is grab a couple of good points that seem to make sense to me when I hear not fucking Jacqui Lambi talk about it, but somebody like Sam Harris or even Ben Affleck trying to debate the fact, or Bill Maher, who is very anti-religion and, you know, is always going to be on one side of the fence on that. But one of the things that Sam Harris was saying that I thought was worth considering was that he was talking about the concept of concentric circles of Islam, and that, you know, you've got about 1.6 billion Muslims or people that practice Islam, and that if you look at like 20% as the first inner circle of believers of the faith that actually believe the more intense, fundamental, problematic components of it, it's around 15 to 20%, and 20% of 1.6 billion people that's a lot of people.
It's a lot of fucking people.
And then he's talking about if you go the next concentric circle out, that's another, like, say, another 10, 15% of those people. And these people, while don't believe the more problematic fundamental components, do believe in the Sharia law component. And what that involves is stoning to death for adultery, things like, you know, genital mutilation,
like women education, I think, is forbidden as well.
Yeah. So that's problematic, and that's what the people that are sort of, you know, saying, you know, we need to look at this in terms of the, you know, religious aspect of it, and what, you know, those more fundamental believers believe in big numbers. Now, after this debate came out, I was reading Bill Maher actually posted Pew Research results of Muslim countries that the majorities of people that want Sharia law and support Sharia law, and they're huge numbers, like, you know, it's like 80-90% of the populations of like Egypt and stuff like that are like, we want Sharia law as the law of the land here. Now, as I said before, that shit is not coming to Australia. We do not need to worry about it being spread. What areas that do need to worry about it is where this whole IS is doing this caliphate spreading in this one state area. That's basically what's happening in those areas, and that's problematic. And these guys like Bill Maher and Sam Harris, they're not just picking out Islam, they are picking out bad ideas. And religion is the motherlode of bad ideas, and they have a go at all of them. They have a go at Christianity. The thing is with Christianity and other religions, this is what one of the arguments these guys say, is while they are terrible things, like terrible doctrines and stuff that still have an impact on society and decision making, the more hardcore components of it, like,
are not, you know, stoning to death,
or even the things that were gnarly, like having slaves, and, like, you know, the Bible says slaves are cool and stuff like that. It's evolved, and even more hardcore Christians will go, oh, those silly little things like sacrificing on the equinox and stuff like that.
That's where it all falls down.
We left that behind.
That's where it all falls down, because you're not Christian when you do that.
That's the argument.
You know, that's fucked. It's like, you know, you're contradicting yourself.
It doesn't completely fall down for them. They're still around in this evolved version that doesn't have those old things. Now, you and I say, well, that's the problem with it. That just shows that you are able to tweak it, which shows that it is actually a man-made thing. It's not divine, because you're changing it.
It's your interpretation.
Then that's why it's a fallacy. But what someone like Bill Maher and Sam Harris would say is that at the very least, Islam needs to evolve to that point. You know, they're not saying, you know, all Muslims need to be dealt with in some way. They're saying the doctrine of Islam.
Like, have a look at yourselves and have a look at this.
You
and
need to
ask
drop
yourself,
some of this more archaic stuff and evolve.
But when you do ask yourself, like you say in those polls, it is kind of like asking them, isn't it? Like saying, would you really want this in your day as your daily life? And 90% of Egypt are saying yes. Oh, that's fucking intense, man. Like
crazy numbers,
like, and if that's what people want, you know, you're gonna go in and tell them, no, you can't do that. You know, that's a fuck off. If you don't have to live here, it's not your country.
Well, that's becomes their fuel for then fighting back. You know, that's why.
But then again, are you gonna sit back and watch all these, you know, poor women? I'm just oppressed and mutilated. Are you going to sit back and let that happen?
That's what these guys are saying. That's why we need to discuss it, and why the term Islamophobia is such a, like, it's just a conversation killer. Like, we're trying to come to, it's a very tricky subject about other people's religion, and there's a fucking lot of people that are practicing it, and seems like pretty big slices, that 20% circle of people that believe the really gnarly shit, and then another, like, circle out of that believes, like, stoning to death and stuff like that. If you say that discussing that's not a good thing by striking it down with a phobia, you're an Islamophobe for talking about that. It just shuts everything down, and it's like nothing's, you know, we're getting nowhere, and okay, I'm a phobe. You know, it's not that guys like Sam Harris and Bill Maher are afraid or phobic of Islam. They're trying to expose it and trying to get us to all talk about it and see these, like, hidden things. Like, it's not good viewing, but you can see some pretty gnarly videos of what goes on in the middle of these countries that you just forget. Like, you look at a video like that and you swear, it's like, did they have VCR in, like, 200 years ago? Because that's when this was filmed, isn't it? It's like, no, this was filmed last week, 2014, you know? It's like, my God, like, you know, and that you just don't even think. You just think that you see the modern world around you and you think everywhere is progressing, you know? And there are countries that have, you know, those.
But is that what they want? You know, do they want it another way? You know, they've got to want it to change for it to change. If they don't want it to change,
look, what I reckon is the way that you start is that integration is key, and showing by example that, you know, look, the best way to look at it, I see, is that when you look at the IS stuff and what's going on in Iraq and Syria, like, all of these most of the deaths that are happening at the moment is Arab against Arab. You know, it's just you're the wrong kind of Islam. You know, Shiite, you know, Sunni. I think that rather than trying to get the fundamental hardcore part of it to change, you just reach out a hand to the ones that aren't that hardcore and say, look, there's a middle ground here. And that actually seems to piss off the more hardcore ones. And they're trying, because that's the whole thing with their videos and their propaganda videos and stuff, and the awesome, cool editing that they've got going on now. They're trying to recruit and get everybody to switch over to that.
There's that 14-year-old Sydney kid.
Oh, that's what I want to talk about. Okay, so that's crazy, man.
That's ridiculous, man. He's so young, man.
I'd love to hear what your thought is about that. Let me just pose
his life up for the rest of his life.
Let me pose you this question, okay? Like, or just let me paint a scenario. Like, I looked at that video and I was just like, my first reaction, I don't know, it's because I got into so much shit when I was younger, got into so much trouble, did so much stupid stuff, that the first thing I thought when I saw that video is that, this might sound fucking stupid, but I thought that could be me. Like, I didn't see it being such a stretch of there being a couple of bad, dumb decisions being made to find yourself.
That's it. It's just in that situation. It's just that silly young dude who's made a fucking dumb decision.
And think of the dumb shit that you might have done when you're a youngster.
That's a pretty big dumb decision, though, man.
Oh, like, it's big. But look,
it's not. It's not going out on a bender or you know. Smashing some.
How many kids run away and go hang out with some dodgy group.
Run away to Syria to fight a war.
That is a big step. But he's obviously gotten in with some dudes that have, like, you know, been a fucking bad influence and said things that have, like, G'd him up. And, like, that's all I see in that video is, like, he's so pumped up, he's so excited, he's so into what he's saying. And I just look at those fucking, excuse the term, but those fucking cunts sitting around him. They are manipulating that dude. They don't give a fuck about that kid.
To join ISIS.
They've told him that he's awesome.
He told his family he was going on a fishing trip. They never saw him again until now. The new face of ISIS propaganda. 17-year-old Australian boy appearing in this video threatening President Obama and for the first time, Australia's Prime Minister, Tony Abbott. Behead the tyrants, he says, warning that ISIS will never stop fighting, not until it has conquered the West. Until we put the black flag on top of Buckingham Palace, until we put the black flag on top of the White House, we will not stop. He is believed to be Abdullah Almir, according to Australian media. With his red hair, he's known as the ginger jihadist. He reportedly disappeared.
Last time I saw a report on this, it was allegedly that dude. They were quite hesitant to say that it was that dude. It sounds like they're just like, it's that dude now. And I guess that photo there, it's pretty much that dude.
No.
Okay, so they're pulling out quotes. They're actually putting up in graphics, like, bits of that stupid shit that he was saying. It doesn't matter. Within the first 2 seconds of seeing that shit, it doesn't matter what was being said. You know what's coming. It's all silly, you know, that propaganda shit.
No.
But, like, okay, so imagine a scenario where you run away from home and you join a fucking Nazi punk band. And they've got fucking stupid fucking lyrics like, I'm going to fucking skull fuck the fucking, you know, Prime Minister.
Fuck.
You know, just stupid, really hardcore punk lyrics. And you go in and you're hanging out with these, like, meth head fucking idiots. You've run away from home. You think you're fucking doing this fucking awesome shit. And you go and record these fucking songs in front of a fucking handy cam. And this dude's like, garage. And then the news gets hold of it. Like, that would seem as stupid as that. And then why would you? Like, it's silly. Look at what this kid's done. And then you're going to grab a couple of lines out of those songs and write them up as graphics on the screen. Just look at this example. Like, that's as silly as doing that as what they've done in that clip. Man, I feel so sorry. And at the same time, I look at that kid and I'm like, you fucking idiot. You dumb shit.
Where were the people around you?
You dumb fucking idiot, man. You fucked yourself so hard. You have no idea how hard you fucked yourself. I have done some stupid shit that I thought I couldn't come back from when I was younger. You have really done something you can't come back from. And let me ask you this, that point of something you can't come back from. One of the things that the government came out with a few weeks ago with all of this terror alert raising and stuff is they came out and they said, you know what, we've got new legislation that says that if any Australian leaves Australia and goes and joins and fights in this,
they can't come back.
You cannot come back.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't know what you thought, but when I thought that, I think that our government is very conservative and shit and doing shitty things, but I heard that and I'm like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you want to stop them going in the first
go
place.
Go and buy a fucking plane ticket.
I want to do it as long as
fucking fly over there and you grab one of those black flags. Dude, you shouldn't really come back. Okay, that was my first initial reaction when I heard
and
that's
you're probably right. You're probably right, but
now
they need to do more. No, I don't know.
This kid, 17. Now they're saying, everyone's coming out and saying, well, we got to hold the standard, don't we? And I'm pretty sure I heard the government come out and say, yeah, we're pretty much saying he can't return.
Right.
Like, that's crazy. So, yeah, you have done something that you can't come back from.
You can't come back to Australia. You know, that's pretty fucked.
Do you not think that it could turn bad for you and they see that the reaction that they've gotten from you making that video hasn't done what they wanted and then they all of a sudden turn you into another beheading dude? Do you not think that that's a possibility that they would do that to that dude?
Fucking or he's fucking gets scared one night or he's like, fuck, I just want to fucking
Exactly.
play a game of GTA, man.
How many nights
And
in
like,
was he
infidels.
How many nights in was he in when he did that video?
Yeah.
Reckon I might have been the first night.
Yeah,
after
probably.
fucking getting G'd up by all those dudes. Fucking go out in the paddock and fire some AKs for fucking a few hours and fucking, you know, man, come and do a video. We've got it all.
got some
We've got it all
hashish.
lined out. We've got it all scripted out, man. You will be the king. We're going to line up all around you like soldiers. And you're going to do it, man. Do it. You could see that was the mentality in the video by those guys sitting around him. And
Of course.
there were moments where you could see the kid come through in his eyes, where he was so trying to be confident, and there's some. It just shows you that extremist shit. It's so cultish, and I'm sorry, but religion really it's a big part of it too. And the ending was just like where he turns to them and he shouts takbir, and they all reply Allah Akbar. It's like that to me is the biggest sign that they, I'm sorry, are mentally deficient, and that this is a cult level thing. You know, you're not quite sure about saying that shit staring down to a camera, but you know what? When you turn and you say that and you get all those dudes shouting back at you, all of a sudden it's like, you know, yeah, I know where I am. No, that I was meant to be doing that. It's like this reinforcement. You know, it's poor dude, man. Poor dude and a fucking idiot.
What about his friends and his family? Like, he must have. You can't do that kind of shit by yourself, you know, without other people knowing. So,
well, they say that he just ran away, but then how do you get out of the country?
how do you get a passport? How do you get all that kind of shit? You know, how do you do that kind of stuff by yourself? You can't, you know.
And if the government's
at
like,
some point, somebody would have had to seen something and gone like, man, what the fuck are you going to Syria for? You're fucking 17, you know. He's going to see my uncle.
I think I can't remember if it was his case or another case, but I think the common way is to fly to Turkey.
Right.
And then you cross the border from Turkey.
Right.
So Turkey's still, I'm sure they're monitoring people that go there, but like that's not a, you know, because I think it is like the government's like, if you buy a Syria ticket, that's it. You're not make it a one-way one. You can't buy a return one, but you can still go to Turkey legit. So people go to Turkey and cross over. But yeah, fucking, I saw that footage when it come on the news. I'm like, dude,
Poor dude.
you have stuffed up hard. Just on the terror laws and stuff. Another interesting thing that we've seen happen over the last few weeks, like so much shit has happened. Like we could do these podcasts way more often and still have like 20 current affairs topics to talk about each time. This shit is happening so often. Remember the plot that was they foiled the beheading plot. Remember? And this is right after, I think either right before or right after the Asia terror level went up, right? And the feds busted dudes. They came in. It was like part of the big raid sweep. And it was like
they were going to behead somebody in Martin Place.
Yeah. And then I noticed there was this new word. Like, it's weird. Like, again, this is the more conspiratorial, think that there's orchestrated everything side of me coming into play. But I noticed when new words get injected into the media and into the like spin, and the word that got injected after they caught that dude for the beheading, the foiled the beheading plot, was lone wolf. And then they talked about that, and they still hear it, but it was like real high rotation for about a week. And this is why we need to raise the ASIO threat, and that we're in this new realm of lone wolf terrorism. Wow. So it's not about monitoring groups anymore.
The cells.
It can just be one dude, just in his own mind, has figured out,
fuck this shit.
I'm a terrorist now, and there's no other indication.
Oh, fuck, sorry.
No other indication of. No, you need to move it. Check. Is it working?
Yeah, it's all good.
There's no other indication that I forgot what I was talking about.
Martin Place. Beheading.
Yeah, and there's something else that was leading on from that. Lone wolf.
Lone wolf, right.
So weird word to inject into the psyche, and it just makes you now have to consider, like, it's not like a gathering at a mosque. It's any dude, any one dude, a lone wolf. And it made me kind of think about, again, going back to my favorite conspiracy, 9/11. I remember when after 9/11 in America, they had the anthrax, which ended up being completely proven to be either government done. They proved without a shadow of a doubt that that was manufactured in US facilities.
Right.
Number one. So the one dude that got pinned on it was mysteriously suicided. And that was the end of the investigations into the American anthrax. But it was like, I remember the handwritten anthrax note. Google that for me, because it's fucking... I swear, if you want insight into maybe somebody that was orchestrating anything to do with 9/11, you are seeing their handwriting in that letter. Because that anthrax was proven to be such bullshit and so much weird fucking shit with that dude dying that was going to testify. No, that's right. He was the one US employee that worked at the anthrax facility that they said he was the one that mailed it all to them. And he mysteriously died. And he was coming out saying, this is a stitch up. I've got proof that it wasn't me. It doesn't need to be. Oh, yeah, that's it. Oh, so is this a video doing actual analysis on the handwriting? So. Oh, man, turn it up.
Noticed about the anthrax letters that were mailed in 2001. In 2002, somebody supplied me with high-resolution copies of some of the letters and envelopes used in the anthrax attacks. They were obtained via Freedom of Information Act request. This is the Brokaw letter. You can see the highlighting of certain characters in the letter, which
Tom Brokaw
are part of a hidden message Dr. Ivans put in the letter, apparently so he'd be able to prove that he sent the letters, if and when that turned out
I think that's what he's
necessary. When enlarged, things become, the highlighting becomes very clear. T, 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 A, A, T, T, A, T. This is part of, this is DNA coding.
What?
And it has meaning if you understand DNA.
These guys got some wacky theories. I just wanted to really see it. What does it say? I can't quite read it from my angle. It says, what? This is next?
Take penicillin now. Death to America.
Yep.
Death to Israel. Allah is great.
I swear to God, that is... that's... Whoever wrote that's got some knowledge that we need to know.
Upstairs didn't put it in our mailbox.
But I remember when that anthrax shit went down, and I don't know how many people remember, but Australia had some as well.
They're waiting for long.
Yeah, we had... It was in the city, and I was in the city when it happened. And they evacuated a building that was right next to Hyde Park.
Oh.
And they had a chemical shower at the exit of the building.
Huh.
And so they were like, I saw them bringing people out of the building, and they'd have to, put them through this chemical shower and then through this, like, plastic, it was like ET shit, like a plastic, like, corridor that they'd created to this other holding tent area. And I guess they were just checking that there was no traces of, and I didn't ever really research it to see if it was proven to be a hoax and stuff, but it was right around the time that the American ones happened. It was an orchestrated thing that happened at the same time in the countries that needed to get the fucking convincing that shit was going down. I know this sounds wacky and weird, but I swear that happened. Like, I can't remember. It was at the MLC building. I think it might have been the MLC building. If you just Google Sydney anthrax. It would have been, well, that guy was saying, what, 2002 or 2001?
Is there a band anthrax?
Is there a band anthrax? Mitch is punching the screen right now.
Slayer and Anthrax live at the Big Top Sydney.
Oh, yeah, that's obviously going to be the Google results. Anthrax scare?
Yeah, put in threat.
We might need to do it on the Facebook page as a follow-up article as or something, but I'm pretty sure it was the same time as the American ones. And yeah.
It looks like just from here around 2001. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was the MLC building or the MLC Centre. I seem to remember that being the building. But yeah, I was just happened to be in the city that day and watching it going down. Very strange, very strange. But I don't know, how do we get onto the anthrax? We're talking about terror laws and stuff, and lone wolf. That's right, lone wolf. That just seems like somebody's handed that to all the news outlets. Like, this is to say lone wolf in all of the, or it might have just been that was a press conference that one of the main AFP guys or the Asia
Sounds
guys
like a sequel to Airwolf.
Lone wolf. Okay, so one of the last things I want to talk about is a bit of an update from the last podcast. We've been going a bit of a progress on how I've been doing on the e-cigs and getting some feedback and suggestions from other people listening to the podcast of things to try with the setup. So I've gotten a few new toys and
Hey, I'll bring it up.
it's a hang on, let me just get my my tray of shit. So yeah, let me give you a rundown of where I'm at with my e-cigarette use. I'm happy to say this is a good sign. I can't actually tell you how long it's been since I quit cigarettes. It's not really an issue to even count. Like, you know,
it's good.
You know, people would be like, you know, I'm fucking 3 weeks, 2 days, and 4 hours without a cigarette. And for me, I'm just like, I think it's about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. I don't know how long it's been, but yeah, that's how much I've managed to, I think, kick cigarettes. I've said it before in other episodes. I've had a few drags now and then, and it always tastes like shit, and I think I'm well and truly over the addiction of cigarettes. I will say this, I have switched some kind of addiction in terms of an oral fixation to vaping, and I don't vape as much as I would have used to smoke cigarettes, but like, you know, that morning walk to work and on my breaks, I'm, you know, still vaping, and I can tell that it's, you know, abating some stress. But here's the interesting thing. So I got some nicotine juice and put it in, and it ripped my head off. I've been vaping,
Whoa, man. Well,
vaping the non-nicotine juice for a while, and that's the thing. I don't know if we actually talked about this on the podcast yet, but when I first got my setup, I thought I was vaping nicotine. I think we have talked about this on a previous episode.
I think so.
It turned out I was not vaping nicotine, but I was vaping something that was a tobacco flavor, thinking that I was getting my hits. As part of the experiment, I thought, you know what, I'm going to find a nicotine juice just so I can try it. And then when I got it, I ended up getting this Vapor Empire stuff that's, hang on, 12 milligram juice. So it's not pure nicotine, it's actual flavored e-liquid that's got 12 milligrams of nicotine added to what would be a flavor.
Steady.
So
That's it. It's upside down, but yeah, I get the idea.
So yeah, put it in, and I got a couple of flavors. I got like 4 tobacco flavors, a RY4, which is like another version of their tobacco, and a coffee one. And I thought, let's try the coffee one first. Put the coffee one straight in to one of my tanks, and yeah, as I said, it was like massive, like sputtering cough, just like. It was so hectic. I was like, oh. And it wasn't so much like I was like head spinning, like, whoa, too much nicotine, I'm feeling lightheaded. It just hit me in the throat. It was like someone kicked me with steel cap boots on right in the Adam's apple. It was like, oof. So I'm like, okay, maybe 12 milligrams is too strong. So I then like watered it down or diluted the coffee one with another juice that I got from a e-vaping store that's like a cookie flavor thing.
Cookie.
Which brewer really likes, and I don't mind, but it was just a little bit too sweet, and I thought, you know what, this could be a good opportunity to like blend it down. Long story short, the coffee 12 milligram juice at a ratio with this cookie juice, we'll call it cookie juice, and the coffee nick juice, about a half mix together that's my jam now. It's so nice. It like has got the throat hit of the nicotine, but really subdued. The coffee taste of the coffee flavored juice is amazing, and blended with that cookie juice.
So for the cookie is now the go-to.
It's unbelievably the go-to. Here's the problem, okay? So I've gotten a new tank and stuff like that, but the thing is that my very first juice bottle was that Stivo juice, which was the tobacco flavored
Show the
juice.
new tank.
The in focus?
Yeah.
Nautilus Pro. Nautilus Mini, sorry. There, which is a recommendation of somebody that's listened to the podcast and left us a comment, said you've got to try out the Nautilus stuff. And yeah, I'll talk about how that goes in a sec, but just on the juices, that cookie and that coffee together is now way preferred to the Stivo juice. Thing is that I liked the Stivo juice when I first got it because I was coming off the cigarettes, and I was trying to replace the taste of cigarettes.
No.
And that Stivo got pretty close. Thing is that as time's gone on, and as I say, every time I have a cigarette now, it actually tastes like shit. I don't think I want to taste cigarettes now.
Oh.
And now that I've actually switched to this coffee cookie hybrid and vaped it, like I've had like 2 vapes going, like 2 tanks going, and I had the Stivo and the new cookie juice, and I just like, man, I'm always hitting the cookie way more. And then I'd have a few days where I wouldn't even take the Stivo juice with me, and I'd just hit the cookie, and then come back to the Stivo. I'm basically at the point now where I'm like, Stivo, and here's the problem. I just bought the biggest bottle that they have. Like, come on. And I'm really off the flavour of it now. Like, I'm truly off the flavour of it now. Now, here's the next problem, okay? I only got 1 coffee of these.
Yeah.
Like, these are tiny. What are they? They're
12 milligrams.
10. No, like as in amounts. Milliliters. 10 milliliter little bottles. And I bought a 6-pack.
But that's the only coffee one.
But they're got nicotine in them, so I can't buy them in Australia. I had to buy them from the UK. So 6 10ml bottles was like $70. But out of those 6 bottles, I've only bought 1 coffee. And this is now my new beautiful flavour, is this coffee and the cookie flavour. Now, I've got plenty of the cookie flavour, and I've got to give a shout out to Steam e-cigs in, I think it's Mascot or... No, somewhere near Mascot, that gave me a free cookie bottle of juice, because I bought another bottle of juice off those guys and it tasted like shit. And I went in there and I wasn't like giving him grief. I was just like, oh man, this other bottle that I bought was like, ugh. He's like, yeah, here, have this free bottle to replace it. So I've got plenty of cookie, but only 1 coffee juice. So yeah, I'm now in a situation where I've got all of this extra juice that I'm not actually liking. The one combination that I've found, I've got very limited. So, but having said all of that, I've saved so much money off not buying cigarettes. I'm still way ahead. Like frivolous spending on a few bottles of juice.
Well, the next question is what if they took the nicotine out of your coffee? And
that's going to be the next thing I try.
And cookie mixture, if you take nicotine out of that, is that going to affect your enjoyment level?
The place where I buy the cookie juice, they have just a coffee juice as well, which is a no nicotine.
But is it going to be the same coffee as flavour as that?
I don't see how the coffee could vary that much. You know how we were talking about how the smell and taste of these vapes are kind of like the chemical recreations of when they try to get that into like lollies and stuff. And that coffee chemical, whatever recreates that, I think is going to be very similar across all of the coffee I could be wrong. It could be that I need to get it imported from the UK.
Try it on your gear before you buy it.
The thing is yeah, definitely. The thing is as well is that from this UK place, I can get coffees that are 0 milligrams. So they do sell no nicotine, just their flavour. So if their coffee is the bomb and ends up being something I can't recreate with other...
What are you going to do with all these other flavours?
I know, it's ridiculous.
You got to try
and
them.
I'm given samplers like, you know, that's the thing. I tried like a berry one. It was terrible. It's terrible. It's so disgusting. I didn't mind the pine lime for a little while, but I tried to mix the berry with that to make it less. Ugh, terrible. I've got another bottle of pine lime there, but like, you know, there's so much stuff I've got here. It's like a, you know, what else have I got? That's the one that's the wet lawnmower.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've got that to spare. And that's how much coffee I've got left. So I've only gone through a third of it, and that's lasted me because I ratio it out with the coffee. The cookie, yeah. So the new tank, it's going really well. It spits a little bit. It's like I get a bit of like, you know, hot liquid shooting through it onto my tongue. Just little specks every now and then.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if I'm doing. Maybe I'm overburning the coil. Maybe I'm giving it too much power. But I've noticed my other coils do it as well. But yeah, that's what I've noticed with the Nautilus. But I broke my iClear, so this is to replace that. And yeah, still giving it a bit of a crank. I've got just Styvo in it at the moment. That's why I'm not using it so much, because I've turned off the Styvo. And so I might load this up with the old coffee cookie combo, and then that'll, you know, whenever I use this one versus these small K1s, the flavour's 10 times.
Have you shown the pen one on the podcast yet? I don't think you have.
So that's the new one, which is just like, yeah, a small pen-shaped vape, and it's a 1300 milliamp battery, which is like it's pretty new tech. Apparently, you would have to go battery this kind of size for that kind of power, but I found this one online, and it's I think it's 5.5 volts. It's awesome. It's really small, way more compact. So
just hold it up to the camera, close.
Yeah.
There we go.
Because it's a physically smaller battery, it doesn't hold as much charge, but it still goes a full day before it needs to charge. Whereas the MVP, they can go like 2-3 days before it needs to charge. So, but yeah, heaps like, you know,
a bit more concealed.
Heaps better in the pocket, and yeah. Last thing I want to talk about, final subject, was I was watching TV the other night, just flicking through, and one of my favourite TV shows came on. I don't watch too much TV live on TV anymore, but I can't help. And it's, you know how there's some TV shows that you don't deliberately either download or buy on iTunes or whatever, and you only watch when you just happen to catch it on TV. That show for me is Air Crash Investigations.
Yeah, I think I watched one the other night as well.
Did ya?
Might have watched the same one.
Awesome. So there was actually a few episodes in the trot.
There was like 2 in a row or something.
And I think the first one was a traditional episode. The second one was about like a traditional episode, as in like one incident, and the whole episode was about that.
You
one
watch
incident.
enough of it to know what's a traditional episode.
Well, this second episode was one that I hadn't seen before, and the format was not this whole strewn out one incident, but this episode was about the robotics and the automation and an autopilot, and all of the times the autopilot have become a problem in air crash incidents. So it was like an episode of like 10 incidents, all super short, compacted, to just show you these are all the times that autopilot's been at play. Did you see this one?
I don't think
So there was one that was in, I think it was in the 80s or the 90s, and it was a Russian flight. It was a 747, full commercial flight. I can't remember where it was flying to, but I'm pretty sure it was over somewhere in Russia at the time. No, it wouldn't have been I think it was over the ocean. So it's like a couple of hours into the flight. They started by showing the air crash investigation officer listening to a black box recording. And you know how they do the recreations and stuff, and he's there, and he's like, listening to you. And then he realizes something shocking, and he's like, and it's like, he can hear the voices of children in the cockpit. Oh, what the fuck? So then they tell a story, and it's like the captain's kids, right? And he's on the flight.
I think I saw that one, yeah.
And so they get up to fucking cruising speed. Captain puts it into autopilot, and he's like, okay, bring the kids up. And so the stewardess brings the kids. The kids haven't been in the cockpit the whole time, obviously. They've been just passengers in the plane. But they bring them up to the cockpit. And, they're like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And it's a pretty new plane. And then they start explaining how there's different levels of autopiloting and how there's ones that do like all systems and some that don't do the rudder. And then there's some that disengage once a control has been moved.
And then he grabbed the controls, didn't he? Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So then the fucking captain thinks it's in full autopilot. He stands up and he gets this young dude. He's like, obviously an actor, but like the way that was portrayed, it looked like he was like 10 years old, maybe 14. And he's like, sit down, put your hands on the wheel. That air crash investigation voiceover dude's like, thinking that it was a perfectly innocent thing to do. What Captain Douchebag didn't realize was that this autopilot system was the one that as soon as the pilot grabs a control, it disengages that control. And the thing is that it was a situation where that kid's grabbed just the wheel and nothing else. So nothing like the flaps, none of the throttle, any of that. So that's all still being automated. But the moment that he touches the wheel, which is essentially the like flaps, not the rudder, because the rudder is actually feet.
Yeah, and
I didn't realise that
on the tail wing.
Yeah,
it's like the rudder on a helicopter. They've got like it's like an accelerator and a brake.
You think that flying a plane, you might be able to do it? I didn't even realise you use your feet for shit. Like, fuck. Anyway, I think it's the flaps on the wings,
and it does that motion,
pitch and
yaw. Rather than that motion. It does that motion.
Right. Yeah. So the kids grabbed it, that. And the way that they show him doing it isn't that he's like, like that. He's just like, it shows the kid quite fucking nervous, as you would be. Like, he's like, and the captain's like, yeah, you do. Whatever Russian he said. And fucking kid grabs a wheel, he's like, and he's just like, just kind of like pretending to little swivels. But that little swivel is just enough for the system to go, okay, Captain, you've grabbed the controls, I'll let you take care of that part. So if he had have done that, maybe the captain straight away would have gone, what the? And jumped on. But because the kids just slightly moved it and disengaged it and maintained, and
it wasn't noticeable.
And they were saying it was imperceptible. And what happened was that it started to that, and which means that after time it started to, like that. So people that aren't watching it started to like list like to the right hand side, which then started to put it off course. But because the other parts of the system were still autopilot, the autopilot's like, you're going off course, so I'm going to increase and change things that I do have automation on, like my thrust, like my rudder, and try and compensate. But over time, it was too much. And because it was a gradual thing, no one felt it. Not even the passengers in the plane felt that, they were even turning or anything like that, let alone the captain. So then they're like showing the kid doing it, and then they're showing the footage of the, plane, how it's turning. And there's this like crux moment where that, like, you know, it just kind of goes like it just can't, like all of the like thrust and everything, trying to balance
kind of
everything
stalls.
out. Kind of. Well, I don't think the engine stalled, but it did
like
kind of get
the
to a point where
lift
it was like,
stalls. And
Yeah,
they lose
yeah,
lift.
yeah. And then this plane's just gone into a dive, and they were saying, the voiceover dude was saying that the G's, like they got like, 4 or 5 G's at that point, and the kid was stuck. And on his, and like not even the co-pilot had his hands on the other wheel, and it was so much G's that the other co-pilot couldn't even lift his arms out of his seat. So everyone was just there watching this kid, and this kid's like, what the fuck? And then like all the passengers obviously are now like fucking freaking out.
Fucking hell.
And fucking long story short, this thing just
They went
dives
in the ocean, and didn't they?
straight down in the ocean. It got to the point where like the plane like went, I don't know if it did a barrel roll or basically got to a point where the G's nulled out long enough for captain to pull kid out, got back in, but it was like literally too late at that point. They were like pointing straight down at the ocean, and the way that they recreated the crash was pretty gnarly. I like the crashes they do on air crash. They're CGI TV quality, but they're good as well. There's something about air crash fucking.
The air crash
disasters.
ad breaks are shit though. They always like go on into an ad break, and it's like, you know.
But then something catches the investigator's eye. A frayed cable.
It's like the fucking really bright lamp in the corner of the room, and he's tapping a notepad with his pen.
But could you imagine that being that young kid?
Oh man,
Could you
freak
imagine?
the fucking shit out, man?
Like the
Freak
fucking
the shit
all of
out.
a sudden.
I remember walking into the cockpit when I was a little kid on the handset, fucking freaking.
Yeah, they don't do that
thing.
shit. And like post
it's all
9/11,
fucking locked and shit.
But that
now.
used to be a thing.
I fully
you know?
remember doing it and going, whoa.
If you're a pretty young kid,
It's the coolest thing to go and see, even if you're not a fucking kid, man. You have a look in there, it's just like,
even
holy
with the fucking thing on the
shit.
ground, not in the sky, you go up to those cockpits and they're like, fucking hell.
Oh my god, yeah.
But yeah, that shit's locked down now. But like, fucking, just imagine being that kid. Like, it'd be so fucked up. Like that's the whole threat of why it's cool to let a kid like sit there, because like the potential is that you're flying a massive plane full of people, and then all of a sudden that shit just gets so real, and you're pinned, and like you're watching like, oh, it's crazy.
Fuck that shit, man.
That was one of my favorite air investigation stories. All right, let's call it a wrap.
Yeah,
I want to just do a bit of a call to arms at the end of the podcast. Once again, thanks to everybody that's listening, and the feedback that we'll be getting, and the comments on Reddit and stuff like that, and just the amount of people that are listening to the podcast is fucking awesome. So thank you for that. I want to let people know that we're now moving into having an audio-only version of the podcast available.
Yeah,
so
check it out in your cars and shit.
we've got like, it's on iTunes. You just go to iTunes and do a search for the Barnsey Podcast, and it'll come up. It's on Stitcher. It's on Windows Mobile. We got accepted. Like, it's like this weird process where I send an email directly to like some dude at Microsoft. Like, it's not just like a podcast at Microsoft. It's like this, like you have to research it, and there's this forum that I read, and they're like, send this guy at Microsoft an email saying what your podcast is, a link to an episode, and like all of this different metadata that they need.
So we're like on the Windows Store or some shit now.
And then yeah, and then I get an email back like 2 weeks later, and he's like, oh, thanks, Adam. Like, it's just fully personalized email, not like a bot or an auto reply or anything. It's like, I'm going to look at this in the next few days, promise. Like, I'll check it out, and then I'll let you know if it makes it and goes up. So I don't know if that means this dude has to listen to the podcast to get submitted or what. But then I get an email like 3 days later. It's like, it's been submitted to the Windows Marketplace. Is that what it's called? So yeah, I think that you can get like just a podcasts app on the Windows Marketplace.
Awesome! I never knew that. That's fucking cool.
Yeah, so there's
Sweet.
all of the places that you want it. We've got like an RSS feed. So look in the description underneath the video here, and all of the iTunes links, RSS feeds, all
leave
that kind of stuff
comments.
there.
We need more comments, more suggestions, and you got opinions on some of the points, or you want to correct us,
Definitely.
or whatever.
All of
Let
this
us
is a
know.
learning process, and when we talk shit about topics, the last thing, speaking personally, I'm never set in stone on an idea. I might talk some wacky shit, but I love counter points. I love counter opinions. So if you guys hear something that we talk and you're like, that is so inaccurate, they have no fucking idea, bring it on, man, because we'd love to flesh out the stuff that we talk about and, learn new stuff and all that jazz. That's what it's all about. So thanks for listening. We'll see you soon. We'll have another episode very soon with the legendary Breakspear. Watch your ancient, structured documentaries. Watch your Graham Hancock stuff. Watch your ancient aliens. This episode is going to be fucking awesome. I promise you. There'll be 2 hours of really wacky tinfoil hats. You know what we're going to do for that episode? We're going to get an old hat and wrap it in tinfoil. And then you get to hand it to the person when somebody really gets too far over the deep end.
All right.
And then we need to wear the tinfoil hat.
I think fucking we'll
That'll be a
need
great
to.
episode. We'll just line the fucking podcast studio. That's the other news I want to let you guys know. We're going to have a new podcast studio in the next few weeks. We'll talk about it. We'll keep you guys up to date. It'll be part of the podcast talking about it. Within the next few episodes, our environment will change. We will be upgrading. We will have even more guests. So take it easy, guys.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks heaps.
Mindset on overdrive, never felt so alive. Getting high on a Monday night, screaming it tells down the God phone. His brother